all stand, and I would ask the gentleman to please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. For a moment of silence, of Nellie Shepard, who passed away on March 27th of this year. She was a former chemistry and physics teacher at Southington High School, 31 years, until her retirement in 1989. I know a lot of people had Miss Shepard as a teacher. She's very well loved in the community, so a moment of silence for her, please. Thank you. I'm now going to turn over to Mr. Medancy.
So I have two more employees on here. I don't know, I'm sorry if,
I don't have,
can I pass this down to you?
oh, wait a second, hold on. My apologies, I did not have this. Also, if we could have a moment of silence for Robert Smith, a former purchasing agent for the Southington Public Schools from July 1974 to October 2006. He passed away on April 18th. And Mr. William Chisholm, Bill Chisholm, dedicated culinary arts teacher in the Family and Consumer Science Department at Southington High School since August of 2010. He passed away earlier this week. So a moment of silence for them as well, please. Thank you. Next item on our agenda is a celebration of excellence.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We have a couple recognitions this evening, but with a common theme, a theme of patriotism. And our first recognition and celebration of excellence goes to kind of one of our annual favorites, the oratorical contest, which is held at Southington High School each year. And thank you to our Veterans Committee who continues to ensure that that's an ongoing occurrence. And I know last year we were able to attend, and we followed that candidate all the way through to the states. Such an impressive event, and an event in public speaking, and a lesson on civic engagement, understanding our Constitution. I'd love to hear about not only what were your forced topics of choice. I know there's some things that you have to speak about, but then there's a topic of choice that you get to speak about as well. Last year, we put the candidate on the spot and asked her to recite what she said, but it was pretty far removed from the oratorical competition, so I'm not going to ask you to do that this evening.
We were already joking with her that she had to speak tonight. She said it.
Yeah, right. Someone who's so gifted at public speaking, you don't want to get up and speak? So with that said, if you don't mind at least sharing with us, a little bit about what were the topics you spoke about during this year's competition and any other plans you have right now. Are you a senior this year? So any plans you have beyond this, we'd love to hear about it, and we'd love to bring you up right now and celebrate your excellence. This is Amanda Thompson.
I just have to say, if you have not seen this contest, it is amazing for students to be called on the spot, given a topic. How much time were you given for your topic to?
Well, we had to prepare an 8 to 10 minute speech. That was the first round, and then we were given on the spot an amendment, and then we had to prepare a 3 to 5 minute speech about it.
And how much time were you given to prepare for the amendment?
Like 2 minutes, 3 minutes,
Hello?
5.
Hello?
Five.
5.
I challenge anyone here to get up and do that, to watch, to witness the poise, the knowledge, on display is absolutely amazing. So could you tell us a little about what your speech was? Thanks.
It was a while ago, so I don't remember exactly what it was about. But I just chose a couple of amendments to focus on. I focused on, God, I forget the one I focused on the most, but I remember one of them speaking out was, I was talking a lot about the First Amendment and just all the different rights we had, and just how even as a kid, you can look at those rights and understand what they mean. And some adults, they may not think that we understand it, but it was just really nice to like go and say like, oh, I know what these are. I also talked a lot about the Second Amendment because that's pretty prevalent in today's society. Thankfully not in Southington, but just it is a growing issue and it's something that I wanted to address. The amendment that I had to speak on the spot about was about taxes, which I don't know anything about. So that was a fun
You don't want to
thing.
know.
That was a fun thing. I got it at the school level, and then when I went to the district competition, I'm like, as long as I get anything but that one, I'll be fine. And then I got that one. So it was definitely interesting pulling together what I could, but I was really grateful for the opportunity for the American Legion just giving me that chance to do that, especially to Sergeant Major and Miss Patton. They were the two teachers that really helped me gather my thoughts and just do what I had to do. And if I wasn't a senior, then I would be doing it again. But because I am, I'll be finding some other way to do something similar in college. And I'm going to the University of New Haven for forensic science.
Oh, great school for
So-
that. Congratulations. So, and you're short selling yourself a little bit because that 8 to 10 minute speech isn't something you read that you've prepared. It's something that you have to memorize and
Yeah.
pretty much perform in terms of your accentuation and your convincing body language that people use and speaking fluently and using clear communication skills. The communication skill around and even critical thinking, I would argue, really aligns well with our vision of a graduate. And so you accentuated that through your participation and your victory. So congratulations to you.
Thank you.
Yes, yes, yes. And on behalf of the Southington Board of Education, I'd like to present you the Certificate of Excellence, because quite honestly, there is no way I could have done what you did. I'm just telling you. Amanda Thompson, having duly qualified under standards prescribed by the Southington Public Schools, you are hereby awarded the Certificate of Excellence for the 2023 American Legion Oratorical Contest winner. In witness whereof, the seal of the Southington Board of Education, the signature of the Board of Education Chair, and the Superintendent of Schools are hereunto affixed on this 27th day of April 2023. Congratulations.
Thank you.
There you go. Thank you.
Congratulations, Amanda. And along those lines, I would like to also introduce another staff member this evening, Mrs. Amy Perry. And Amy is quite the leader at Kennedy Middle School, especially when it comes to civic engagement and honoring and recognizing our veterans. And so this evening, we have Mr. Stephen Armstrong here from the Connecticut State Department of Education. We have Veterans Committee members, Sergeant First Class Steve Pintrick, Sergeant Major Steve McCarty, and Specialist Wayne White here. And they are going to join Mr. Armstrong up here at the podium where Mrs. Perry can be presented and recognized for her Veterans Recognition Program that she runs at Kennedy Middle School, which is quite an honor. So Mrs. Perry, please come up.
Thanks a lot. I'm also, by the way, here to represent the State Department of Ed and also the Department of Veterans Affairs, who are the co-presenters of this award. And just by the way, as a fun fact, about 80 years ago, I won the same award that you did, but I would beg you not to ask me what I spoke about, because that would be, how about that? It was one of the amendments. How about that? We'll leave it at that. But this is a honor beyond belief. We do every year, it's called Remembering Our Veterans Program. And we ask schools to do programs, and we have a rubric, and we have form and everything that has to be filled out. And I would tell you that this JFK Middle School in the last couple of years, and I say this is the best program in the state as far as this goes. I mean, I could list, I started writing down stuff they put, but it would take way too long. By the way, you know what's something else? I go to some Board of Ed meetings. You know what else is kind of interesting about this? Everybody seems like happy. You know, I go to Board
Steve,
of Ed
all of our meetings are like that.
I'm sure.
We're all very happy.
And I'm sure 2 hours later, maybe it'll be the same vibe. I don't know. But look, these, and by the way, it's your work and it's your work together. This is not, you know, in the best schools that do this, it's not just the school doing it, it's not just veterans doing it, it's the school and veterans doing it together. And just if you're not sure, I mean, I just wrote down collecting materials for Ukrainian refugees, bringing veterans into the school, adopting a veteran or a grandparent, gifts to veterans for the holiday season, Valentine's Day card for residents of retirement facilities, many of whom are veterans. So, I mean, and that's the beginning of this. So I can't tell you, I mean, and I'm not kidding you on this, that we see a lot of programs that, in all honesty, for the last couple of years, you find folks have been the best in the state of Connecticut on this. So I really want to congratulate you for it. I don't know who gets this. You get this? But here's, and it says, the Connecticut State Department of Education and the Connecticut Department of Veterans Affairs recognize JFK Middle School Southington for extraordinary performance and participation in the Remembering Our Veterans program. Thank you. So here you go. And we hope they're getting their application together for this year. But that's,
No pressure.
thanks a lot, and the State Department of Ed and the Office of Veterans Affairs definitely appreciate the work that you fine folks do supporting this work as well. So
Thank you very much, Steve.
Thank you very much.
Oh, Mrs. Perry. Where's the picture? Come on, come on.
You gotta say something.
You gotta say something. Gotta say something.
I want to thank everybody. This could not have been possible without these fine gentlemen right here. They are the heart of Southington, and we honor you. Thank you very much, and thank you, everyone. Thank you. Thank you.
I'm going to take a quick minute.
Okay.
You heard about our oratorical contest. The American Legion and the Ladies Auxiliary have one more program that we're getting ready to accept applications, and that's Boys and Girls State, where the students between their junior and senior year go away for a week and they learn all about the government. They put them in different towns with different forms of government. Some have the mayor, some have a town manager like we do, and a town council. And they learn all about the government. They bring in all sorts of good guest speakers for them, and they learn how to do a meeting and how to speak in public and all. The other program that and I'm so proud that we're starting it up again, is Connecticut State Police Youth Week. Again, for students between their junior and senior year, we put them in the State Police Academy for a week. Mom and dad get a break. They're under lock and key the whole time they're over there, and they're definitely changed when they come out of there. They go to classes with the cadets that are in the school right now. They take them out, they teach them how to use radar guns, a lot of physical activity. They take them, they show them how to use a taser. They can't use it on each other, but they show them how to use it. We take them out to the range in Simsbury, and they do some shooting out there. We take them to Rensselaer Field, and we put them in the cruisers, lights and sirens, running down the runways at about 70 miles an hour. So a lot of activities there. So anything you can do to help support and promote those programs in the school, we appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
We're going to take a 5-minute recess so we can meet our award winners, okay?
the arrangement. Hey, are we doing this in the parade? This is when?
Why don't you guys all get together? We'll get this put on. Oh, there we go.
Yeah, right in the middle, right in the middle.
Smile. I said
Thank you, thank you.
Do that and I'll do this one.
yes.
All right, let's get you over here. Do you want to, do you want to get over here?
We have that too, yes.
This back?
Oh, how are you?
Right here in the front row seat.
All right, I'll walk on these. Okay. Hi, how are you? I'm Nicole.
Why don't, before you guys leave, why don't we get you in there as well?
I just asked Mom and Dad to do this. Mom and Dad don't want to get in the picture, man.
Look this way. Okay, hold on.
Smile.
All right, so now,
Come on, parents. Come on. Here we go.
That could be a good one.
How's this look? What do you gotta lose? Exactly. Hey, it's close. When we were in the main room and they were getting ready to leave, he made some kind of remark and we all started laughing, but none of us can remember what he was. I'll let him go.
I'd like to follow what happens to you guys down the road. Thank you. Have a great day. How are you doing?
Good, good.
Thanks for taking all my calls and answering my questions. It's been great. Now I'm busy. That's why I was like, I'm just gonna call him because I think I'm just gonna keep asking questions.
You're here, right? Yeah. Who's gonna do
I think it's just all seconds.
Oh, that's right, because we didn't, yeah. It's a second. It's a
All
second. Sure.
seconds. I just need somebody to make the board.
Sergeant Major? I am. No, I don't think so. I was, don't exercise, it's dangerous. That's all I'll say. I've been running, I love to run. So I was running.
Today is all, look at all the mess. Poor Zay, he's gotta sit next to Pig Pen over here.
Hey, where's Kelly?
And I think time I ran it, barking a little more, and then just Friday when it was done. So I got to get an MRI. Because they did X-rays and the hip joint's fine, so it's got to be.
I really am becoming you.
Are you scared?
Chris Poulos laughs.
I'd be scared if I were you.
You're not a bad person to emulate, let me just tell you. You really like it. I love it. I won't eat it because I don't want the sugar to like make me cough.
These are different, like totally covered.
Teeth the way you do when you eat sugar. You have the most beautiful teeth. And you.
I'm drowned. Oh boy, yeah, you can picture that. My dentist finally gave it back. We've never taken
My
it.
guard.
I got because my teeth. I don't have the pointy things. They're all ground down. The insides of my teeth are all ground away.
Are they good? Try one? Freeze dried Jolly Rancher? I don't want to touch anything.
Trying it?
You're gonna try one? Freeze dried. So I did this freeze dried series the last month. This is the last one.
Let me ask you this, why don't you, at this point, like,
$100 and I spent.
really?
Yeah, they're expensive. Like dehydrated.
try it?
They like them.
Aren't they good? And they kind of just disappear. They melt.
Do they taste like a Jolly Rancher? You wonder why you're sick though.
Put it in your mouth, Ted. Just feel it kind of just like melt away.
Does it smell like a jar?
That's literally what, like,
That's what it smells like.
blood sugar 800.
He's such a nurse for like 2 seconds and eat the damn candy.
That is too funny.
Are they really like 200 bucks?
They're like They're really expensive. You can't use like a I was told you can't use like a regular dehydrator. Freaking high enough as it is for the inhalers. You can call the police.
These are fine.
Hey,
She's all hopped up on Mountain Dew.
me?
Talking about you.
Albuterol.
Come on.
That's the biggest smile I've seen on her face. Hi. Hi.
What's up, Sean? I also can't hear. I feel like I'm underwater. Poor Zaya. He's got to sit next to my nonsense. All germy, and you're a germaphobe like I am. I'm sorry.
I don't eat all of it. Like,
Seriously, when you
what
get
I'll
back
do
from
is
making
like
out
I'll
with me,
bring it
I'm not
somewhere and I'll
dirty, I
be
swear.
like, here, yeah, take some, you have some, you do.
Because all those years of smoking
I
got
mean,
to
they're,
me.
you know, like, they're
Yeah,
great
anytime today.
once in a while to, you know,
She's-
have a, you know, yeah, you want something sweet,
Come on, Dad, that's for you.
2 or 3 of them.
Come on, Dad.
Then after that, I'm like, okay.
Come on, Dad.
Save diabetes
Do
for
we get
somebody
pictures?
else.
All right, are you all back?
Are we?
Now, are we? Yes, we are. Okay.
Back to the future.
Looking for a motion for the approval of the minutes of March 23rd.
So moved? Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Now, this evening, our student reps, but we have some filling in, so Amanda?
Oh, man, double whammy.
Yeah.
I just wanted to thank the Board of Ed. I was one of the students that got to travel to London and Normandy and Paris over spring break. It was an amazing experience, and I know myself, on behalf of all the students and teachers that got to go, we just wanted to say thank you. So we have a card from all of us, and we have French shortbread. Yeah, French shortbread from Montchet Michel, which is in Abbey in France. So.
Excellent. Yeah.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about the trip? What you
Have 2 minutes
It's
to-
such what an amazing opportunity.
Starting now.
You have 3 minutes to prepare. Now, just go.
I mean, my favorite part of it, it's kind of cliche, but it was seeing the Eiffel Tower for the first time. Ever since I was like 9 or 10, my bedroom has an Eiffel Tower mural on it because it was like one of those things. It's like, I need to go see this at some point. And then I got to see it, and one of our last days in France, we were taking a river cruise, and we went right by it, and it was just at the right time where it started to like twinkle and light up, and it was like literally the most magical experience ever. Just going to Normandy and seeing the all the graves, and just that whole experience was amazing. And London, like if I could ever live there, I definitely would. I don't know. Just everything about the trip, like I don't think there was one bad moment. I got to go with my sister, and just being with her was awesome. You know, she never left my side, which was like, but family time. And I wish that COVID never happened, because then I could have done it before, and then I would do it again. But I know college has some study abroad programs, and I'm already looking into them. And I'm just grateful that I got to have that opportunity.
That's great.
Thank you, Amanda.
Oh, look at me salivate. He's so excited. He's so excited.
Here, you better pass that down.
Have a little bit of a reputation. So. Andy.
Thank you so much.
Did I hear, oh, go ahead. Did I hear that you went to
Seriously.
Normandy also? Okay, that was, all the times I've been to Europe, been Paris, Normandy by far is all choked up.
Yeah,
It is such a solemn place that it's just amazing. I'm going back again in June,
Oh.
and that's one of the highlights I'm looking forward to seeing.
Very nice.
Thank you, Amanda, and thank everybody. I'm going to pass the card around so you can take a look.
Sure.
And hopefully you don't
Yeah.
have to see. We'll be in touch.
Go enjoy dinner and studies.
Yeah, go enjoy. Go enjoy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next, communications from Board of Education members.
I had an opportunity to watch my daughter perform at the Silver Star at the high school. That was an absolute blast. The high school does such a great job of putting that on. My in-laws actually came in from New Hampshire to see Hannah and the band perform, and they were actually very impressed at the auditorium. They're like, gosh, this is a really nice auditorium. Like, as a board member, you should be very proud. So it's, again, it's always a great experience there. Mrs. Osias does such a great job with her kids. They also performed. And I know they had a couple concerts this week. And then, what was the other, there's one other thing I wanted to come up at some point. But again, like, it just proud of the high school, proud of all the work that we do, and just keeping it as tidy as it is, so.
So I was traveling this week for work, and I wasn't able to be at the public hearing on Monday, but I did watch it. I had one earbud in one ear, and I was in a meeting for work, but I stepped away from the meeting because I was really more interested in what was going on for the budget. And a couple things struck me. It was a long meeting. There was a lot of data that came out of it, but one of the items that came up was school safety. And I wanted to, the chairman of the Board of Finance, just a couple of comments that he made. He said that the Board of Finance had directly asked the Board of Education to come to the Board of Finance with reasonable safety-related capital needs, and that they have $7 million of excess, and he repeated the word excess twice, rainy day funds that can be used for capital immediately to address safety concerns, and that the Board of Finance had a discussion with the superintendent and the chair of the Board of Ed regarding school safety and wanted them to come forward with the safety measures that are currently not in place. And he said that we want to address them and we have the funds to do so immediately. So what I'd like to ask the superintendent to do is, and when we had discussions at the board level on a lot of safety issues, some were voted down, some were voted in, but the ones that were voted down and then some of the other safety issues that we've discussed previously, and I don't want to really discuss them necessarily in public because we don't want to talk about any of our vulnerabilities in public, but if you can put that list together that we can then maybe review in executive session and then have it with the Board of Finance in an executive session. Again, I don't think we should be putting that stuff out in public, but if they're willing, I mean, if they've got $7 million of excess funds, then they did set some sort of a limit, but, I mean, I think that's the opportunity, and if they're saying they're willing to do that immediately, I say we get them that list as quickly as possible and begin that process, because summer's coming. That's a perfect time to do some of these things.
So I can certainly work and for the next board meeting to have that as an executive session item and bring a list forward to you guys for discussion. School safety is one of the privileged executive session items that can be discussed, so we can certainly do that.
Okay.
Anyone else? Still here? Yes, he is. I just want to say I had the privilege, you attended a concert, I attended Matilda. At standing room only, I might add, it was amazing. The level of talent on never ceases to amaze me, and I directed shows at the elementary level. But the middle school, all those children, that cast, I don't know how many students you have, it seems like you must have at least 100 kids. Trying to get them all on stage, doing what they need to, it's a production, hats off, you folks did an awesome, awesome job. job again. So thank you for the time, the energy, and the effort everyone had to put in, because you really had a remarkable product. And I just wanted to say, I said to my husband, you're gonna have to come the next time, because it's that good. So thank you. Okay, anyone else? Administration.
I have one other thing.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're eating
These
the
cookies are delicious.
Jesus. Brought to you by.
All right. Thank you, Madam Chair. So I'd like to start out and just acknowledge and thank our mentors and community volunteers for their contributions to Team 195 and the robotics competitions. Interestingly, I didn't know a lot, admittedly, about robotics, and became more involved this year probably than ever before, attending the competitions, watching some of their matches online, following them at Worlds down in Houston this past week. It's just such, when I think of what we do for the arts, and we've talked about the music performance, and we know what we do for athletics, I think the robotics program is kind of quite the model for what STEM looks like in our community. And I can honestly say, and obviously maybe I'm a proud superintendent, but when I went to the matches and also when I watched online, they're kind of a big deal. They are a team that, there's competitions, they win all of the qualifying rounds and often score the most points. But then there are alliances where other teams have to choose who they're going after, and they all want Team 195 with them. And we're not talking just Connecticut schools, we're talking regional and national. I even compared them to my daughter's old high school, which is in Wallingford. It's a private high school that's kind of, prestigious, and we squashed them. Loved it. So with that said, I really want to acknowledge they did fall short of their goal to making it to the Einstein round, which is kind of like the Super Bowl for robotics. They made it to one round before the finals, and unfortunately, the very last match, the arm of the robot, through impact, broke, and the gas spring couldn't support it anymore, and so they couldn't score any more points. It's part of the game in terms of how durable your machine is, as well as how agile and how well you drive. But another successful season, and just in addition to the experience that the kids have, the camaraderie that they have with each other, and just how appreciative they were even of the support from all the adults. It was just a pleasure to see. So congratulations to them. Mr. Brachevsky, along with what you just said, I'm proud to announce that our district has been recognized again for the NAM Music Award. The NAM Foundation is proud to recognize our community for the outstanding efforts of teachers, administrators, parents, students, and community leaders who are making music part of a well-rounded education for every child. We salute the commitment of the community to ensure that every child can learn and grow with music. And that's not an automatic award. That is something that the music vendors in the community nominate their hometown school districts for in order to be recognized. But it seems to be becoming an annual occurrence for us, which speaks to the excellence and commitment to the arts for the district. I'd also like to thank Jonathan Gombatz and the Southington High School softball boosters. As I had shared with the board previously, the Southington High School softball field fence is and never has been regulation, and which is impressive to think about when you think of how well we hit there. But regulation, the fences would actually be brought in slightly, and so they raised through board policy in the banner and advertising process. They raised the funds to have the fence replaced and moved in to regulation distance. And the work is going to be done the first week in May when they're on the road for their games, so that this year's team will get to use a regulation size field. So I can only imagine how many home runs are going to leave that park now. And our pitching doesn't allow many home runs, so I think it just positions us nicely. But more importantly, again, when we, along the line of the robotics, it was the boosters, the parents in this community that stepped up and got that done quickly. That was part of the athletic facilities project, had that passed, and so in lieu of that, they got that done. And then lastly, we have just informational for the board. As you know, we've run a pretty robust summer school program the past couple of years using the ARP ESSER funds as part of COVID recovery, between staffing and transportation, which we were always able to provide at no cost to our families. As we are all aware, we don't have the funds to do that again this summer. So we've partnered up with the Y, and we've submitted a grant for $141,000 that would provide the free classes, the meals, the transportation, as well as an afternoon at Sloper for the students that attend, all free of cost, should we be awarded the grant. So I'll keep you posted on whether we achieve it or not. But if we receive that grant, certainly a huge thanks to the YMCA for partnering with us and getting this application together to benefit our students. So we will keep you posted on any outcomes relative to that grant. And that's my report for this evening.
I haven't had the opportunity to follow the robotics team like I have in the past. A couple issues that developed. I will say that our Director of Finance did an outstanding job during a couple of our meetings, keeping us up to speed what was happening in Houston, which was great. I really appreciate that. But in light of that, the season, I believe, is now over.
Yes.
Now, pre-COVID, we've always had the robotics team come and visit and bring their, and I'm not sure what the name of this robot is.
Yep.
But it may be a little bit too big to bring here.
It'll fit in here. This one will. And I mean, we'd have to clear out a little bit of space, but
Good
the
to hear.
driver's pretty remarkable.
Okay, good to hear. But I would like to maybe put out an invite to them. And, I mean, we have a celebration of excellence, which I think they really deserve, the entire team. And so at some point between now and the end of the school year, maybe.
So we had actually planned on that
way ahead of me.
for the first week in May. They're coming, the next board meeting. So as long as the arm to the robot is working, they have to get a new gas, I don't know, they would call it a gas shock or something to make sure the arm, if they get that replaced and it's working, then we're in.
All right, way ahead of me.
After seeing the kickoff meeting, and I hadn't followed robotics, I'm guilty. I had not followed robotics as much as I had the arts or sports. I watched the Houston, I was just so taken aback by the level of technology out on that floor, what those kids were able to do, the competition that they had to go through. Thank you, Mrs. Mellon, for sending the link, because I had never seen one of those competitions. It's absolutely amazing, absolutely amazing.
And I would put a robotics parent up against any athletics parent in terms of how long they are sitting in the gym on competition days. It's a long day.
Even during finance meetings, they were sitting watching.
Exactly.
And you kept us, and it was good. It was very informative.
Thank you, Mr. Darowski. They will be here.
Yeah, okay. Any other communications? Moving along, any communications from the public regarding agenda items? Okay, this is regarding just agenda items. This is the first one. Okay. And if you could give your name and address, please.
Chris Robertson, 47 Coles Avenue. One of the agenda items I'm looking at, and I've been very concerned, I've had the opportunity of raising 3 kids and putting them all through the Southington Public Schools. And one son is 34, daughter 32, other daughter 27. The world is changing, and the world is changing fast. And especially like Mr. Zaya said, public safety, it should be number one. First and foremost, public safety should be number one. For those who don't know me, I was a former fire commissioner for 4 years here, a volunteer fireman in Cheshire, and served in Staten Island with the hospital rescue during snowstorms, bringing doctors and nurses to hospitals during storms. Ladies and gentlemen, my wife for 18 years served as a paraprofessional here in Hatton. I am very, very concerned with the security of our schools. And on this agenda, and it's here, right here on the agenda, is that you have an outsource of contract cleaners. right here, you're going to award a bid to a contract cleaner. That is, I deal with schools from Connecticut up to Portland, Maine. I will tell you, the contract cleaning is going away. You think you're saving money, you are not saving money. That's a fact. That's not me talking. That's a fact. You're not saving money. Here's what you have. And here's our superintendent is very good. Past superintendents, not so good. But I'm going to tell you here's reality, ladies and gentlemen. You don't know who's cleaning our schools. Our schools are now community centers. They're not closed at 5 o'clock. We have young ladies and men walking around until probably 9 o'clock at night. And we have these contract cleaners. We don't know if they're the same ones day after day, okay? That scares me, okay? We have a $7 million rainy day fund. There is no reason why our school should be not cleaned by our own people. Don't give me that it saves money, because it doesn't. Because I know for a fact in the past years, we had contract cleaners sleeping in the library where the head of facilities used to come check on them, and they're sleeping in the library. Some of our schools are not that clean. And I am an expert on healthy green cleaning. Healthy, not clean, healthy. You receive $4,000 to $8,000 from the federal government for students sitting in a chair. Well, let's make sure that our schools are disinfected properly, cleaned properly. Our taxpayers deserve that. And with a contract cleaner, I'm going to tell you right now, table this, look at bringing in our own people, A, for healthy cleaning, B, for public safety. And please do me one favor when it comes to public safety. I go to Hatton School or XYZ School Strong. Hi, I'm here to see the custodian. Huh? Watertown Schools? You know who meets me at the door? A police officer. Then they take my license. They put it into a computer system. It's registered, making sure I am who I am, and a badge is put on my shoulder. We have a long way to go, ladies and gentlemen, here. I love this town. I grew up in Cheshire, been here 30 years, but our world is changing very fast when it comes to public safety. So this one, table putting this through, look at hiring our own staff. Thank you for your time.
All right. Seth Korn, Yorktown Road in Southington. Madam Chair, Board of Ed members, Superintendent Medancy, and your administrative team. I am a parent of a first grade and future Kelly Elementary School student. I would like to discuss the elementary school's facilities project. Over the past several months, I've attended the parent forums and reached out to Mr. Medancy personally to ask questions and get clarification about this vital project for our town and our school community. It is my understanding that the most recent district-wide facilities meeting, it was decided to delay the elementary project further for several reasons. To gather more information on enrollment projections, the uncertainties of leadership at the State Office of Construction Grants, what would happen to Flanders property if the school was closed, debt services, and building costs. Is there uncertainty of what the town will do with the Flanders property if one of the scenarios chosen to close Flanders? Yes, but that is not the decision this board can control. Are costs high to build? Yes, they are. But we cannot predict if or when they will change. Is there uncertainty at the state with leadership in the grant funding office? There is. However, there was last year as well, and other school districts still put forward grant proposals and are now on the list for school construction. This includes our neighboring towns, Cheshire, which will be building 2 new elementary schools. The state office is still accepting school building grant proposals and making decisions on them. You have been provided 4 scenarios from SLAM to help improve our community. It is disheartening to hear that you again plan to wait another year to proceed. I ask respectfully, when was the last time you walked in the halls of Urban T. Kelly Elementary School or visited a classroom there? I did today. And in comparison to other beautifully renovated buildings around our district, the facilities at Kelly are not equitable in the least. I implore you, if you have not been in Kelly Elementary School recently, please take a tour. In fact, invite the town council, the town manager, the finance committee members, our local state representatives to take a tour of Kelly and the 2 other schools under consideration. Seeing the actual buildings would convince you to not delay this project any further. I ask for the chair and members of the district-wide facilities committee to convene an emergency meeting to finalize the elementary school project and put forth the grant application to the state by June of this year. In my opinion, it is well overdue to build or renovate Kelly Elementary and proceed with one of the proposals presented by SLAM. You've had months to review the report, and now you need to make a decision to proceed that is in the best interest of our students. Our teachers, staff, students, and community deserve it. Thank you.
On the agenda, committee reports. Dancy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First committee report this evening is the District-Wide Facilities Committee report. So upon discussing the follow-up from the community forum in the Board of Ed meeting, the committee discussed the recent attendance at the community forum where SLAM presented the various scenarios associated with the elementary construction projects. There were about 20 parents present at this forum. Unfortunately, something had occurred with the video equipment, and although the forum was streamed and recorded, no sound was captured. It's our new system. We had them come out and rectify that problem, so we don't have that problem any longer. However, in order to ensure that the information was shared with the larger community, I did send out the 2 prior presentations that were done directly for the board so that people would have the same information that the board had, and that is also built out on the homepage of our website along with all the cost projections. We then moved on, and it was discussed, the consideration and discussion of timelines for the grant application submission and referendum. The committee discussed the upcoming deadline for the grant submission and the tight timelines associated with an application submission, given that the board has yet to endorse any specific scenario given the following: enrollment projections not supporting the closing of a school, current cost of new construction at $495 a square foot, which will have a major impact on town debt service, which has already been on a challenge to navigate relative to the Board of Ed and town operating budgets during the current fiscal year. As we've had much discussion, we were a $500,000 tax increase this year alone relative to the debt service before the town managers or Board of Education's proposed budgets. There was continued uncertainty at the state level with yet another turnover in OSCGR leadership. And then there was concern expressed among some board members over closing a neighborhood school and building larger elementary schools. The committee reached consensus to hold off on a June 23 grant application for school construction. Discussion continued relative to timing and referendum dates of November 23. Consideration of a special referendum for May of 24, with a June 24 application submission, or the need to wait until 2025, given the town's commitment to paving referendums every 4 years and not wanting to combine requests for funding in the community. As a matter beyond consensus, we discussed the thought process of a master district-wide facilities plan. The thought process behind that was giving the community more time to see what would happen with Flanders or Daranoski, depending on the size of a Kelly school, projecting out costs, factoring escalation, as well as the hardening of the entryways, the ongoing roof replacements, athletic facility projects, the various paving projects, and the installation of upgraded HVAC in the 5 remaining elementary schools after this construction project. And we felt that part of what, and we shared the South Windsor stories, part of what worked well there, they've built 3 new elementary schools, was a district-wide facilities plan, a master plan, that the entire town got behind and saw the expense and costs factored into the debt service and the municipal budget in the coming years versus not knowing what the master facilities plan would look like should they choose to approve or not a referendum in November 23 without knowing what that would do to the remaining projects or work that needed to occur in the elementary schools. The committee then set a comprehensive district-wide master facilities plan that effectively prioritizes and costs out projects with escalation accounted for is needed to better inform the community of needs and larger scope of work leading up to referendums. And so we didn't necessarily say we wouldn't be going to referendum in November 23, but we figured that would only occur if this board were comfortable with a scenario. And we would still need to get bonding authorization, which the town council has to authorize through the town manager. But at that point, if we did do a November 23 referendum and June 30th of 23 passed, we would have to hold off until June 24 on the grant application. As I had shared through conversations with community members, is that one of the challenges with submitting a grant application now is you have to identify the size of the school you're going to build because that determines your reimbursement rate. So if you haven't decided whether you're going to close Flanders School or not, you can't determine whether you're building a 500-person Kelly School or a 300-person Kelly School. And then we did have a third conversation about a 300-person Kelly School and land adjacent to Oceana Elementary School and the annex of South End that's already built out for addition, so that you potentially could still not have larger elementary schools, yet you would have to present a new scenario that has not had cost factors associated or pre-referendum work relative to site appropriate, the site preparation, if you will. They have to look for wetlands and whether it would be suitable for building, especially the land adjacent to Oceana. We know the south end, it's already roughed out, so there's the sprinkler systems, the elevator shaft, the stairwells, that's all there. That would just be an infrastructure change. So I did have a great conversation with some folks today about this and some of the complexities associated with the timelines. And I do understand it is one of those things that, the more time passes, the grant application on June 24 means you won't get on the state priority list until December of 24. And normally we know that there's time that passes relative to when the shovel, until you break ground, because there's ed specs and designs and all that, building committee work that occurs prior to the actual work starting. So we do want to be careful that we don't continually delay this to a point that it doesn't matter what inflation is doing right now, the cost may never come down, or we're at a point that we've waited too long and the schools fall into a state of disrepair. They're older schools right now, they're well maintained, but they are absolutely not the same as the newer schools that have been renovated, and that is something we acknowledge. That's my report.
Any questions?
I think I have more of a comment of, again, kind of how we've done facilities management in the town thus far, right? And just the same way that for years, I feel like we've talked about, certainly when Mr. Goralski was our board chair, about looking at the town as not individual silos, but essentially, listen, we all have the same checkbook, and we're all trying to do the right thing here. And I think a perfect example of one of those sort of fall downs, if you will, I mean, the library situation is a perfect example of, here we had, okay, we could set this money aside, this is what we're gonna get for it, and then, again, a year and a half, 2 years down the road, it's like, well, for what we have approved, we're not gonna be able to do what we'd like to do. And, you know, part of the thought process I have, and again, discussing potentially closing a school and things like that, is, you know, further support of a master plan, if you will. Have a 3-year, a 5-year, a 10-year plan, just like in businesses, where essentially where are we going? And potentially looking at, again, I look at a Daronowski building. It's a beautiful school, there's so much rich history there. And then I see the Karen Smith Academy right there in an old utility building. And essentially, well, we have that great space across the street in the public library. Well, maybe a Karen Smith Academy going there would be a better idea, and then potentially making the library where Daronowski is, or somehow refacilitating that building to be a stunning, beautiful library that we could all be proud of when we drive down Route 10. So it's things like this where I feel like we operate in such a silo that we could do such a better job in making these decisions and figuring out, you know, which schools, if any, do we need to close, and, you know,
I think
how
one
large
of
they
the
are.
challenges is, and it's been for a while, at least since I've been in central office, there's this, for lack of a better term, I'm gonna call it a rumor, that there's this declining enrollment, and why haven't we closed a school already? And when we did the initial enrollment study in 2018, I would argue that was somewhat true, that enrollment had dipped from maybe 2013 through 2018. But when we looked at the most recent enrollment study, which was 2021 to 2031, a 10-year projection, our enrollment is actually slated to increase by 200 total students by 2032. And we increased by 200 students last year alone, in 1 year. So all of a sudden, that doesn't support closing a school, and then what do you do once a school is closed and the property's been turned over to the town, and if it's been repurposed or developed, and now you're looking for another site and building a new school, people are gonna wonder, where was the foresight behind that decision to close a school? So that's a challenge, certainly, that I think we need to look at closely, because what once was maybe with an old enrollment study and perpetuated the fact that enrollment was declining is simply not accurate any longer. And this year specifically, and next year, Mr. Pepe could attest to this, probably COVID-related, but the birth rates that came in for the last 2 years are higher than they've ever been, and our enrollment, kindergarten enrollment projections are coming in already next year higher than they've ever been at this point in time. So, and that's one of the hardest things to account for when you're doing an enrollment study, because it's the unknown enrollment, and you don't know who's going to move into town with school-age children that have not yet entered your system. But we're seeing just the birth rate alone supports an increased enrollment, which supports the projections. So it's a challenge, and you know, it's very accurate, because I will at least say this: other people have questioned the validity of the enrollment studies, and the 2018 study we did, this year's current enrollment with the plus 200 is within 1 student of our actual population. So these are engineers that do this work. It's not people that just, you know, look at a map and put pins in it. They're pretty accurate relative to birth rates, housing market turnover, recidivism rates, and that sort of thing. So it is something that is going to be a challenge, and something we have to discuss, because there's not really a scenario that's been developed relative to what to do with Flanders if we're not going to close it.
Have to look at, but to your point, we are talking to, we're not just looking at the schools, we're looking at other things along with the town council members who's on the committee, along with the town manager, planning and zoning. We've asked we need, as you say, to look at this as a community. What are we gonna do and move forward?
You're spot on in that when it was just an elementary facilities committee, that was our worry. It was just a subcommittee of the board, and it wasn't getting out through the town meetings in terms of their committee reports. And so we were worried that the other boards didn't realize that we have a projected increase in enrollment. So when you bring forward a scenario to them that they don't understand why you're doing that, if there's supposedly this decline in enrollment, and also the competing projects with the town. Like, we have to make sure we're not asking too much of the taxpayers from the town and Board of Ed.
Saying essentially, we're doing so much great work in town that it would be nice to bring it all together in a nice package. Again,
I think the
Library
library
building.
example, the worry is that there's an old saying, the horse is out of the barn.
yeah.
You know, so they have designed it, it has been approved, the referendum has passed, and so that may be, in terms of Darrenowski Library juxtaposition, that may be,
But just
As
a
an
perfect
example,
example of if we had that discussion, say, a year ago.
Yeah.
That, I mean, again.
Could have
like,
been, yeah.
Talk about a wonderful utilization of keeping the history of a Darrenowski building like that, but then not, again, when they first started talking about revamping Darrenowski to the tune of something like $56 million or between all the stuff that would have to happen in that building because of its age, because of how it's set up, again, it becomes a logistical nightmare by today's standards of
Could you
making
do it?
repairs.
Yeah,
So these are the things that I feel like we always seem to fall short on as again,
We're trying not to,
communication
yeah.
among boards,
Yeah,
so.
and that's what we're trying to do.
I just want to make a couple other points from the last facilities meeting, and I think nobody wants to delay this any longer, right? But there's a lot of facts that change. Now, the longer you wait, facts will continue to change, right? If you wait another month, some new facts will come in. But I think if we were to try to go out and sell this right now, there's not been enough detail for this board to make a decision, let alone to try to sell it to the community. And the worst possible thing that could happen is go to referendum in November and fail. Because if it fails, it's never going to pass again. We experienced that last year.
Yes, we do.
But the other thing is, we don't want to wait till next year, November of next year, because there's $10 million of roads that are going to be out there. And that's got to be there, because that's part of the town's plan. Like Mr. Mazuski said, that's what they're doing, and it's working. So we talked about going early. We talked about April, May, so that it's not during a political time. It can't be made into a political football. It can't be tied into any other things that are going on. It'll be a standalone. And by that point, the entire committee will have had these discussions, community involvement, come up with one plan. And not just for one school, but for the entire organization that's gonna change. And I think most importantly what that does is it gives us the opportunity to get out to the community and sell it. Go to the schools, go to the PTOs and explain it to the parents. Go to the Rotary, go to the Kiwanis Club, go to the Elks, go to all these places like we've done in the past, right? And explain what's going on. And sell it to the community so that when it does come up for a vote, people will know why. And, we talk about the debt service, you talk about all that other stuff. I think the concept of saying that people changed at the state, there was a little joking about that. Don't, if Southington puts something out there, don't be the guy at the state because you're going to end up getting fired. I don't think that was the reason that it was asked to be held back. I think at least from being on that committee, and what I heard was two major concerns. One, the changing of the facts that took place that we didn't take into account in putting together these proposals. And secondly, there's not enough time to sell it. And it doesn't make sense to go with one this year and maybe one next year. Well, it can't be next year. It has to be the year after and the year after. Let's put an entire facilities plan together and sell it all at once and then phase it in over time.
And get buy-in from other boards and councils so that everybody is, there's nothing worse than misinformation,
Right.
such as we lost 600 students.
Yeah.
I don't know when, but the misinformation that happens, that we're trying to do this so that everyone has the same information, they all hear it at the same time, so that they can go back to their board, their council, and say, this is what is taking place, and it's a townwide endeavor. So that's what we're trying to do. So,
Great. Again, I'm in support of that, so, I think that's fantastic.
But it's not waiting a year.
no.
And I think that's important to say. It's
Right.
not waiting another year.
Okay. All right. Mr. Darrenowski.
I'm going to play historian. When I first got on the board in 1991, I was part of the first board capital plan. And that's when they came to the realization that something had to be done. They had to put a plan in place for renovation and updating the schools. It was a 15-year plan. Okay? It was a 15-year plan. So in 15 years, the plan was that all the elementary schools would be upgraded, 2 middle schools would be upgraded. Here we are 32 years later. I think we still got 3 or 4 schools that still need to be done. In fact, the schools that we first did 30 years ago, okay, are probably going to be needing an upgrade. I think they credited me with coining this phase of everything that we deal with in Southington with the schools travels at glacier speed. That? Well, it was a bad joke then, it's still a bad joke. It seems that every time we get the enthusiasm going and we get, everybody's all pumped up, we run into a stumbling block. And I could see one happening again. And I think it's great that they have a town-wide capital plan. We've been toying with little bits and pieces of a capital plan town-wide for a long time, and it's great. Planning is terrific. It's taking that plan and making it a workable project to get something done. We've been talking about school renovations, like I said, for over 30 years, and with me sitting here, 30 years from now, we're still going to be talking about it. It's just, somebody needs to take the bull by the horns and make it happen. And everybody's scared about, well, what's the impact on the debt service? It's not going to get any better. Prices are not going to go down. We got blindsided with the library. That's real. And I don't think you're going to be seeing prices coming down to the point that they were 3-4 years ago. And that's when the original, in fact, the library discussion started, I think, 12 years ago, if not longer. They even bought property in Plantsville to build a new library. Property's still there. Okay? And there's no library there. So, I mean, planning is great. It's taking that plan and putting it into a project and make it happen. That's where we fall short.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Dancy. Next committee report, Finance Committee. Charnowski.
Yep. So the Finance Committee met last Thursday, we first discussed a couple of bids. The first bid was the 2024-06 bid for the contracted custodial services for Southington High School for the summer only. So Ms. Hill had presented those bid results for the Southington High School summer only. Four vendors bid. The lowest bidder for all 3 schools, all 3 years, is Custodial Cleaning of Stratford. And the administration had recommended that we award that 3-year award to them, Coastal Cleaning. And the committee agreed with that award as presented. And I do have a motion on that. Move to award bid 2024-05. I'm sorry, it's 06. Contracted custodial services at, wait a minute, sorry, hold on a sec here. Oh, this is, it's out of order, I'm sorry. Sorry. Move to award bid 2024-06 contracted custodial services at Southington High School for summer only to Coastal Cleaning of Stratford, Connecticut.
Second.
Any discussion?
Yeah, just, I mean, we've had this discussion before, but just to address the concern that came up today, can you explain the process of how these firms vet the folks that they bring in and how we deal with, because I know, we've had this issue with Mr. Romano in the past that had to deal with these issues. How we go about monitoring performance, because I know we've had these discussions at the committee level, but it would be good to get that out into the public.
So, right, in our bid document, we have language in there that refers to the Connecticut Public Act 16-67, which requires background checks for new school employees. And there's a subsection in that public act that refers to vendors in schools. So our custodial bids have this language in there, and the vendors are responsible for doing background checks. The other thing to keep in mind is that the custodial cleaning that happens at the high school is only over the summer months, and they actually report into our head custodian who's our employee. He oversees them. And we'll get to the next bid, which is DePaulo, Kennedy, and Darrenowski, and that cleaning takes place in the evenings when our head custodians are also on site. So our employees are overseeing them, and I think that's important for us to know.
Thank you.
If I may just, I guess, ask a question to build off of yours, Zaya. Now, I understand that's part of the statute, that they have to do the background checks and everything else. Do we get copies of those background checks that are put on file with the main office?
We do not at this time.
Okay. Do we ever spot check to see if they are in compliance?
When we're talking with them during after the bids are open, we have conversations with them about their background checks.
So it'd be worthwhile to, again, to make sure that we're doing our due diligence and spot checking that and asking to see those background checks based on individuals. Just a thought.
Questions? All those in favor?
All right. So next item was another bid award, 2024-05, for contracted custodial services for DePaulo Middle School, Kennedy Middle School, and Darrenowski Elementary School. 4 vendors had submitted bids, and the lowest bidder for all 3 sites was Champion Maintenance and Construction of Fairfield. And they had actually previously provided cleaning services for Darrenowski, and the Director of Operations had supported the award here. So the administration does recommend awarding a 3-year award to Champion Maintenance and Construction, and the committee also agreed to award the bid as presented. And I also have a motion here. Move to award bid 2024-05 contracted custodial services to JAD, JFK, and DES to Champion Maintenance and Construction of Fairfield, Connecticut.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
So the next thing we've discussed was the YMCA before and after care program for the rates for the year 2023 to 2024. Ms. Mellett presented the proposed rental rates for the YMCA before and after care program for that school year. The rates are developed each year to reflect the increases in the hourly custodial rates, the MERS, and supplies required for that. Ms. Mellett did state that the YMCA will notify the district about which sites will actually be operating in the fall after the enrollments are finalized. So the committee did approve the rates as presented. And I also have a motion here, move to approve 2023 to 2024 YMCA rates as recommended by the Finance Committee.
Second?
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
The next item we talked about was a quick financial update for the Board of Education. It was presented by Ms. Mellett through April 20th, and some of the changes from the previous update included the announcement of the final reimbursement of the Special Education Excess Cost Grant, which was at 76.31% for our ranking. That was actually an increase over our assumption that we would have gotten 73.25. So as a result of that, the district will receive an additional $147,000 in grant revenues in May. We also had a previously denied unemployment claim that's been approved by the state in the amount of $17,000. So that has been encumbered and will be paid out when billed by the state. Also, an outplaced tuition settlement in the amount of $86,000 has been encumbered and will be paid in accordance with the settlement agreement. And the district does not anticipate having a large surplus at the end of June. I don't have any motion on that, so the next topic was the Select Physical Therapy contract extension. It's kind of a follow-on from the last update we gave on the March 15th meeting. So we did review the 3-year contract extension with Select Physical Therapy, and some language was added stating that Lori Martin, a current trainer at the high school, will continue to be assigned at continue to be assigned to Southington schools. So the committee did agree to approve the 3-year contract extension with Select Physical Therapy as recommended by the administration. And I do have a motion here. Move to approve the 3-year contract extension with Select Physical Therapy as recommended by the Finance Committee.
Second?
Any discussion? All those in favor?
All right. The next item we discussed was mobile device management, an additional 5-year agreement that we're looking to open here. For those that don't know, mobile device management is the software that helps us manage all of the devices, all the iPads or Macs or anything else within our district centrally, so we don't have to physically put our hands on the actual devices themselves to configure them. Mr. Savage, our network manager, presented a request to the committee to sign a new 5-year agreement for that software. It is an increase in annual costs from $15,000 to $24,450. We did seek other pricing from other vendors, with SHI, our current vendor, being the lowest of them all. And another vendor did match the pricing of SHI. However, Mr. Savage did discuss that a switch in vendors would also cause us some additional labor to convert all of our devices manually to the new software. A discussion was held about the needs and the benefits of the MDM software, and I believe everybody on the Finance Committee did recommend that we approve the 5-year proposal for the MDM software through SHI, our current vendor. So I do have one final motion here. Move to approve the 5-year agreement for mobile device management software through SHI as recommended by the Finance Committee.
Second?
Any discussion? Just like to say thank Mr. Savage for a report. His memo, I understood it. So if I can understand it.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mr.
Sure.
Okay, no, it was excellent, because I didn't quite understand some of the things, and it was excellent.
Yep.
So I thank you and the committee for that. All those in favor?
Aye. So one last update here, just a miscellaneous topic that we did get an update on the self-insurance meeting that was recently held on Wednesday, April 19th. The March claims paid and the claims incurred were both a little higher than budgeted and higher than March of the prior year. And based on that March claim increases, no adjustments were proposed to the 2023 to 2024 budget. And that's all I had.
Any questions? Thank you. Okay, Superintendent's report, personnel?
Move to approve the personnel report as submitted.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Town government communications. I would just like to publicly thank the town councilors that came for visits to our high school and Hatton School. I think some of them saw for the first time what we do is different from what they perhaps remembered from their own days of being at Southington schools. So I would like to publicly thank them for coming. Okay. Now we have some policies, Mr.
I'm gonna,
Zaya, could you?
Sure. These are second reads. They were presented at the last board meeting. So policy 4118.5, move to, that the Board of Education approve policy 4118.5 as presented by Policy and Personnel, which is the responsible use of staff technology.
second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Secondly, move to approve policy 4118.7 as presented by Policy and Personnel Committee, which is the social networking policy.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Move that the Board of Education approve policy 5131.2 as presented by the Policy and Personnel Committee, which is the private technology device by students policy.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Move that the Board of Education approve policy 6141.9 as presented by the Policy and Personnel Committee, which is the responsible use of technology.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
And lastly, I move that the Board of Education approve policy 6141.1 as presented by the Policy and Personnel Committee, which is the bring your own device policy and protocol for use in schools.
Second.
Any discussion?
Aye.
Favor? Oh, you do. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay, go.
No, you can, did you have a question?
The, not for the board. It's a question I have with the superintendent. I'll talk with him later.
Anybody else? All those in favor?
Aye.
We have now two curriculum.
Yes, I have curriculum. Move that the Board of Education approve the SHS Asian Studies course as presented by the Curriculum and Instruction Committee.
Second.
Move that the Board of,
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
I'm going to rush. Okay. Move that the Board of Education approve the SHS Criminal Justice course proposal as presented by the Curriculum and Instruction Committee.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? I love both those.
They're great.
Agreed.
I'm so excited.
This is really cool.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. New business, NEAC accreditation report. Mr. Medancy?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So we finally bring to you the NEASC accreditation report, recommendations and progress from those recommendations. This was a particularly challenging NEASC process because, as you may be aware, it started with Principal Straneri, and then it moved on with Principal Pepe, and then finished out by Principal Krakow. And there was a pandemic in the middle of all of that change. I want to thank first of all, I'd be remiss, and they're not here this evening to be acknowledged, but they should be, Carrie Louise Peschel and Michael Gagnon, who were the NEASC co-chairs. As you know, you have to have faculty representatives co-chairing the process. They did an outstanding job. Also, to the staff, who spent a lot of time preparing for the visits, gathering the required documentation for the visits, collaborating, participating in focus groups, completing surveys. A lot of work, as you know, goes into this 10-year decennial visit. And so great work by the faculty as well. And lastly, to the administration and the instructional leadership team for bringing this forward. I think what you'll see tonight is a very favorable report. Certainly there are areas for growth. That's part of why we do this. It is a reflective process for us to help us prioritize the work that needs to occur going forward. So with that said, I'm going to leave Mr. Krakow and Mrs. Zappone to the presentation.
Okay, good evening, everyone. So tonight, Mr. Krakow and I are going to give an overview of what the recommendations were from NEASC. We'll start with just a little bit about their mission and their goals. Mr. Krakow will bring us through their purpose and the process. We'll go through the recommendations that they gave us and then also provide you with some status updates and next steps.
So the NEASC visit occurred a year ago, and like Mr. Medancy said, it's been a process that has gone through three principals and has concluded with me. But one of the things that I was very impressed about is the amount of progress that we've made, even despite that. Right. So we're going to talk about a lot of that progress today, but I had the pleasure of being a NEASC commissioner prior to coming here, and one of the changes that NEASC has made over the course of the years is they're focusing on meeting schools at where they are and then bringing them through a continuous improvement plan. So what that looks like is, and this is kind of like the culmination of all of the principals that have worked on this and the staff that's worked on this. You know, it started with a self-reflection, and then there was a collaborative conference that happened in October of 2019 where they identified some areas of growth and some areas that they wanted to make improvements in. And then we went into a period of school improvement planning. That's where Miss Carrie Louise and Mike Gagnon worked to kind of bring that all together. And then from that school improvement planning, there was a summary, and then it culminated in a decennial visit. One of the things that you want to keep in mind as we're looking through this is that the focus that NEASC has in a successful visit is when you see alignment between our reflection and what the team sees as where we are in progress. So Amy is going to go a little bit over all of those things, and then we're going to bring you through each one of the focus areas that NEASC has, which is learning culture, student learning, professional learning, learning support, and learning resources. And they made recommendations, and we've done a lot of work this year based specifically on the recommendations that we made. So we're going to focus a lot on that work that we've done. Okay?
All right, so the elements or the foundational pieces that they come in and look at are the 5 that Mr. Kracko just showed, and you can see them listed there with the ratings. So something to kind of point out is that the school's rating, so the school reflection team, is very much aligned with the visitors that came. So that does show that we're identifying and seeing the same areas of growth and improvement, as well as identifying those strengths. So that's a good thing when you see alignment. You'll notice that 1B, learning culture, is divided into 2 segments. There's the safe environment piece and then the mission and vision. So you can see that the safety environment piece was meeting, the mission and vision was not meeting, and we'll get into why and what some of those recommendations were. In addition, the student learning piece came up as non-meeting, and we'll talk about some ideas they have and the work that has been done in those areas. So at this point, we're going to kind of bring you through each chunk and talk about what they had for ideas for us. So priority area 1, learning culture, this is the one specific to the mission and vision. And we know as a board, the vision of the graduate is something that we've adopted and we begin to embrace and grow throughout the district. That being said, it's about alignment of that vision through everything we do. So through all of our curriculum, our assessments, and our instruction. In addition, at the high school level, one of the state requirements was the capstone. So how do we offer this capstone experience? What does it look like? And how does it embrace our vision of the graduate? So over the last 2 years, that was really curated and developed. And this was the second iteration this year where we really brought that to fruition. So those were all of the recommendations that you can see there, including making sure we complete the implementation of Capstone, which we have, always an ongoing revision process, but it has been completed. We also worked to revise the rubrics with our vision of the graduate to make them more student-friendly and accessible. The other piece was making sure we had leadership and staff to support the work of the capstone, because it's a great idea in theory, but you need the manpower behind it to make it work. And then continuing to develop those capstone lessons to support student learning in that process. So those were all of the recommendations that they made for us. And now we'll kind of look at what has been accomplished this year. So this year, students engaged in what we call BCAP, the Blue Knights Advisory Portfolio Program. And that is an electronic portfolio system where students are identifying critical work that aligns with the vision of the graduate, work that they are proud of that showcases their skills and accomplishments towards meeting that vision. So in order to make that happen, there's a lot of learning involved that took place. Professional learning for the teachers who are implementing those capstone periods or BCAP periods. That's where they would give lessons to students. And there was the development of those lessons behind all of that, quote unquote, the curriculum being used to drive that lesson planning. BCAP has been provided twice a month for students throughout the year. And then the rubrics have been revised, as I mentioned, and those are in circulation across all content areas, departments, and courses, and that's what students look at to self-assess and monitor their progress. In addition, we identified a BCAP leadership stipend this year position, so we had Mrs. Heather Allenbach, who's also a department leader, has picked up that stipend position to really be the point person on the progress of the portfolio system, as well as helping to develop lessons. Of course, she works with teams and gets feedback to make sure all of those pieces are moving. And then, most importantly, the student submission of the portfolios and inventorying that, giving them feedback, and looking at their success on the capstone project. The other thing that was done this year was trying to differentiate the capstone lessons by grade level. So a 9th grader coming in will have different needs versus the 12th grader who's about to exit the capstone implementation. So that is a lot of the work that has taken place this year. There's always next steps. That's what NEASC points out. We're continually improving and progressing. So part of the next steps are taking in the student and teacher feedback. So remember, the Board of Ed reps came here and they gave us some student information from surveys. That type of information is critical to our work because student voice as well as the teacher voice helps better the product and the process. In addition, there's always additional professional learning for staff regarding the vision of the graduate. So we're constantly looking at our curriculum and making sure that vision is living and breathing throughout all courses. We want to make sure in our next steps we maintain and prioritize that BCAP leadership stipend position, because that's how we're able to assess and get all of our students to complete capstone, which is a graduation requirement. So these are pivotal stipend positions that really make sure all the pieces are aligned and the process goes smoothly. And then lastly, part of feedback is always making those BCAP lessons relevant to students. So the more feedback we get, the more relevant we can make it for them. That's just a quick snapshot. So the BCAP program, our capstone, has transitioned into this e-portfolio. Each student will have a platform where they are inputting their work and they're reflecting on it. So it's a nice electronic submission, something they can have with them post-graduation for employers to showcase in any way. And it's very interactive. They've embedded the rubrics right in there and other resources for students. So that's kind of just a quick snap of what the process looks like for them. Priority area 2 is focused on student learning. So the first piece was really the mission and the vision of the goals and the capstone. Now we're getting down to what does the day-to-day learning look like for students. So as you can see, many of the recommendations from NEASC had a lot to do with consistency and coherence and having a shared understanding of what good curriculum and instruction looks like. So NEASC picked up on several pieces such as consistency of formatting of curriculum being updated and renewed through a cycle, making sure our curriculum actually indicates how it connects to the vision of the graduate, because we can't just say we're doing it, we have to show how it's living in there and how it's assessed. So that kind of encompassed the main recommendations. The other thing they looked at was the incorporation of learning targets into the curriculum. Learning targets is just educational speak for very clear learning goals and objectives to drive teaching and learning. So throughout this year, a lot of work has been prioritized around inventorying the curriculum. So you notice on the agendas how much curriculum keeps coming through to you. It's because we have massive amounts of curriculum in this district across many levels that continually need updating and revision and alignment. So just to kind of put into perspective the breadth of this, just at the high school alone, there are over 300 courses with active living curriculum. So if you think about that, every 3 to 5 years, curriculum should be reviewed for an update, a rewrite, a revision. That process is ongoing. And through different budget seasons and through the pandemic, things may have gotten delayed, right? So we're playing that catch up and trying to get things to that place where we're proud and we know it's of high quality and alignment. So a lot of the work was the inventorying and prioritizing what do we do now, next month, next year, and ongoing. In addition, curriculum, we know we need to have it available for public access. We've heard board members come. We know that's one of our rights and responsibilities as a board in a district. So we have shifted to putting that all publicly on our website into Google Docs system. And the reason we went into a Google format is so that it's living and breathing. And when revisions come through CNI, we can easily get that up there. So if you go into our, I'll show you a slide in a moment, our district website, you're going to start to see more and more of that populated and refreshed. In addition, we updated our curriculum writing guide and process. So we're an Understanding by Design District, UBD, also known as, that's our curricular framework. But we had to update that to represent the vision of the graduate. So that process and those forms and templates now embed those skills and standards within so that there's alignment with all phases of our curriculum development. Next steps. So there's a lot going on, but again, we're just chipping away. We're going to really focus our time and energy on those curriculum renewals and updates. It's a continual process, ongoing. We're going to continue posting, and again, we're trying to have consistency of format. So anything that comes through you now will have that same look and feel because we're measuring and assessing and having the same kind of parameters. And then lastly, and really importantly, is professional development. So the teachers need the time to learn how to write the curriculum. They work in small teams, and then time to develop it. So we have professional development time, we have curriculum writing within and outside of the school day. So just a quick glance. So if you were to go into our district website, there's a curriculum maps tab, and I just highlighted high school, but within there you would start to see all of those UBDs. Not the entire UBD packet, because we don't publish things like the assessments for public view, but at least they can see the standards, the goals, and the topics, so they're aware of what we're teaching in all courses. In addition, this was a big area, this was a non-meeting area. Every department leader at Southington High School and I work collaboratively with administration, and we developed action plans by department. So every department is in a different place with their curriculum. So creating the plan to then drive the work, what needed to be done immediately, and what is our long-term pacing goals. So that then led to what curriculum writing teams do we need in place? And that's where we're able to bring in teams of teachers and department leaders to get the work up and running and continue to move it on. All academic areas collapsed to 2 main levels for next year. So it was a phase-in process that you were aware of. But that was one of NEASC's recommendation, is to remove some of the leveling so that more students had access to that rich coursework. So we did that by creating criteria so we knew where to place students appropriately. And then there was whole school professional learning this fall around the learning targets and success criteria. So that was like a big initiative for consistency of instruction. Next steps here, just continue to be implementing the action steps by department with their unique needs, continuing to prepare our curriculum for teaching in a block. So as we shift into block scheduled teaching, we have longer chunks of instructional time. So all of our PD in these last few months and moving into next year is all about readying ourselves for that. And then teachers continue to develop and share their learning targets with students to drive instruction.
So priority area 3 is around professional practices. So this is like, how do you plan that? How do you put all of those things together? School improvement plans, growth planning, putting together a theory of action, getting that information out to the families, students, all the stakeholders, and then providing a focus on getting feedback from all of the stakeholders as well on all of the school-wide initiatives that are going on. As you know, the majority of this year has been focused on the theory of action around moving to a block schedule. So in shifting to a block schedule, we can provide students with more opportunities to take courses that support college and career readiness and put together a comprehensive pathway approach, through a comprehensive pathway approach. So that's been that's the school improvement work that's been going on throughout the course of this year, creating plans, getting people on board and getting people working towards that. What we're doing right now is we have we have a school improvement team that meets biweekly, and then biweekly we also have subcommittees that are working. Those subcommittees are working on different parts of the plan, and I'm having ongoing informational sessions with families and with teachers and with students. Also, as a part of that is the supports that we have in place for our social emotional, our social worker, our social emotional learning, mental health. We're seeing a huge uptick in that in a need in that area. And then we have our SRBI teams, which work primarily at looking at those students that are struggling either academically or behaviorally. What we're doing with that is we've developed a student and staff support team. Ms. DeSenza is here tonight. She does a great job leading and working with our mental health and with our social workers and guidance counselors and school counselors. We've, as a piece of that, putting together the student staff support team to assist identifying effective programming for some of our most challenging cases. So that's a group of people that come together and kind of look at a case study and look through and work through that. And then we have our SRBI teams, which are focused primarily on intervention and looking at students that may be having some issues academically. The COVID has caused some delay in learning, so we have a lot of interventions in place, but some of those interventions, some of the challenges that we're seeing are complex, and we're always looking for more supports in that area. Priority area 3 is learning support, and this is more based on the organization, how the building supports teaching and learning, and how the systems and structures within the school support teaching and learning. So what we've done so far is we have subcommittees. Those subcommittees are building structures and processes, scheduling needs, teaching and learning, and communication. If you look at those top two, the building structures and processes and the scheduling needs are basically focusing on the overall physical structure and where classes should go, which classes go here, which classes go there, how many classrooms can we use for study halls if we needed to make them a little bit smaller, what's going on with lunch, like those types of those transactional things. And the scheduling needs, so that's a team that's putting together, we have a number of students, so now there's 8 courses that students can look into and request into. So what ends up happening there is you have a lot more students that want to get into more classes, and then how do we work and how do we make and meet the needs of all of those students? So right now, we're in the process. I think today we just reached a milestone. We had figured out what our schedule will look like next year, and there's still more work to do, but we've got that in place. We've seen, so if we look up here, the course requests have gone up tremendously, specifically in our elective areas. So if you look at these are the courses, and this is in the course requests from 2023 compared to 2024 and the change. And you can see if you're looking at it holistically, there's about 120 there's about 120 students that we couldn't get into courses. That's even more so at the elective area. One of the bits of data that I have for today around that is, so when we ran our first build of the schedule, which means when we pushed a button and everything got out there, we saw that 53% of our students got all of the classes that they requested. 29% of the students were able to get into all but one course requested. 11% of our students were not able to get into 2 courses that they requested, and 7% of our students were not able to get into 3 or more courses that they requested. So that's preliminary. We're not done working on that, so that work will go on. But it kind of highlights I was talking to Ms. Clark at the career fair that we had. It kind of highlights the idea of if you build it, they will come. So this is all by design. We're putting all of these pieces in place, and as we put these pieces in place and we get more information, we get more data, it helps us design programming that supports college and career readiness. Amy is going to talk a little bit about some of the additional courses and some of the changes that we put together for our students moving into next year.
Yeah, and I think as Mr. Krako just stated, this last priority area is really about kind of aligning all the systems and what's the bigger goal and vision. So yes, we're putting the structure of block schedule, but the big initiative is really the college and career cluster pathway alignment. So providing those opportunities. So just to kind of highlight some of the new things that have come this year that we're very excited about implementing, we have teaching assistant internships being implemented for next year in both the humanities and STEM courses. So that is a new addition that is in alignment with that human services cluster. We've also been able to take the medical terminology course that we had and transfer it into the science department. We had a retirement in one of the departments, so we didn't have an instructor, but creatively got it into science so we can keep that up and running, because that's a cluster we're a little bit light in and we want to try to increase over time. In addition, in terms of the technology end, we developed, Ms. Savical is here, a student help desk internship as well. So that is something that will kick into play for next year, providing students with more in-house internship opportunities. We also brought forward a health and safety certifications course in our wellness program, our PE and health department. So that will run next year, and that's not just first aid and CPR, but many other safety certifications involved. Ms. Patton was here earlier and has left, but she's very excited to be working on a criminal justice course, which went through CNI. So that will be in development and be available for students in the near future. The Asian Studies course just came through tonight for a second read, so that is getting into some of those different global connections that we're looking for in our coursework, as well as classical mythology, which is one of the ECE, Early College Experience offerings that we've added. In terms of career additions, earlier this year we talked about our program of study redesign, which we shared with you, and that's really highlighting what is available for students, what are those career clusters and what courses they can take. So this year there was a new design of program of studies. Each year as we go, we'll continue to refine that. In addition, a career liaison stipend position was posted this year and filled by one of our staff members, Effie Cahill. So she is a new point person on helping set up, taking leads from the guidance department and administration on different types of internships, certification courses, job shadows, and being very creative on what we can bring into students at a low-cost type of situation. In addition, just recently it was mentioned, there was a wonderful career fair hosted at the high school. We know we saw some of you there. Ms. DeSenza and some of her counseling staff did a phenomenal job bringing in over 80 businesses to showcase community types of business partnerships, and there were hundreds of students and families that attended to engage in that. When it comes to our, Mr.
I just
Mediancy?
want to point out for Mr. Bachevsky, they're not only with the courses, the medical terminology course, but the career additions, the last bullet. Because we've been talking about a CNA program forever, and thank you to Ms. DeSenza for bringing that to fruition. We have, is it 14 students currently enrolled right now? 9, we're at 9, okay. So just wanted to point that, I didn't want to gloss over that. Thank you, sorry for interrupting.
That's all right. And then the last piece we were just going to mention is we have something called Naviance, which is an electronic platform that connects students to their interests, college and career, and it looks at there's different surveys you can give them on interests and likes to get them ready for beyond high school. So we made sure that survey in there aligns to the career clusters in the program of study so it can help them identify and then select courses there on out. And I think that's all we have for you tonight. So lots of recommendations, lots of hard work, and Mr. Krakow and I definitely want to send a shout out to every single stakeholder involved. So all of the things we've moved forward with this year would not happen with everyone from administration to teachers, students, and families, because all of this work is a collaborative process.
Let me just say, wow. From start to finish, the NIAS process, as we know, is arduous, but to see all the work that has been done, to see how closely you are now aligned, and to see all those pieces, thank you, fall into place, especially, I can't tell you how excited I am personally with the career pathways that I saw the night. Again, Ms. DeSenza, thank you so much for the work you did and your staff for the career night. To see something like that, to see all those students there looking at the various opportunities that will be available to them after high school, I think is just absolutely amazing. There's just so much in here to absorb. So I'm going to open it up for any questions anyone has. Mr. O'Shea?
I have two.
Yep.
I want to go back to, I think it was slide number 9, where you mentioned incorporating, I'm not sure if I have the right You talk about the curriculum and how the curriculum has to tie into the vision of the, yeah,
Yes.
and how you're gonna grade that. Can you explain that a little bit? How that process would work and how you would tell if it's successful?
Yeah, so in terms of the curriculum design, the vision of the graduate has different indicators within each skill, those 4 Cs, and they each align to a rubric strand. So in our curriculum design, we identify which of those Cs or skills and then which rubric strand we're actually assessing within the unit. And how we're assessing it is, it's mostly in a summative-like assessment, so an end-of-unit type performance task, or a project, or it could be even more of a written type assessment, but we're pulling in that rubric as part of their grading criteria. So there will be content on there, but there will also be an assessment of a skill. So for example, in a science lab, they may be answering and analyzing different information, and as part of that, they're using critical thinking. And we actually have a rubric strand that identifies it on a 1, 2, 3, 4 level, so they're getting that kind of holistic rating using the rubric. So that's how we couple the content with the 21st century skills, is by pulling the rubric strand that supports that content acquisition. Yeah.
There's also an aspect of it that's self-reflection. So the students also see the rubrics, and as they work through a collaborative experience or, you know, a critical thinking exercise, they'll look and do a self-reflection on their own. And the BCAP, the capstone project, is focused mainly on that self-reflection and figuring out where you do this work and how it's impactful for you.
And second, slide 18. Next steps, it talks about coursework, course requests doubled for most courses and tripled for some. You know, the new 23 graduation requirements, right? There's new credits. So all students are going to need 3 additional credits, right, to graduate?
Yes.
And now you've got all these requests, and you can go on to the next page looking at the changes in terms of courses and requests that are out there. This is a tough one, right? Because this is a major change in the way you provide coursework. How do you do that with no new staff, no changes, a level services to a certain degree budget? How do you do that?
It's hard.
Can you do that?
So what, like I said, what we've seen, we've done the build already. So when I look at these numbers, this shows me like opportunity, right? And it also shows me excitement from students, right? So now they have the opportunity. So if I'm looking here and I see that last year only 364 students requested art, and now we have 676 students that request art. That's the data that we can use to come back to the table and say, you know, if this is where the need is, maybe we need more art we need to look at where we have vacancies and shift them into those areas and use that data in that way. It's not going to be perfect, and it's not going to be perfect moving into next year. That's why I gave you that data up front. So that, you know, 53% of our students and 29 got all of their courses that they requested. 29% missed one. So the majority of our students are getting into the courses that they request, and they go from there.
So with the electives and then with the requirement for 3 additional.
Yes. That's also the point of going to the block schedule, to provide more opportunities within the day. So now every student can take 8 classes as opposed to just the 7 in lunch.
So the challenge is they have the opportunities now, but do we have the staff?
That's
Right?
the point, right?
So when you look at a typical teaching load, even in a 6-period day, it's about 150 students, right? A 5-period day is 125 students. So when you have 775 additional business course requests, and you know a teacher maxes out between 125 and 150, you're looking at 5 to 6 business teachers to honor the course requests of those students. So when I'm putting together a level services budget every year with no new staff, I've asked Ms. DeSenza to provide me a report of how many kids didn't get the courses they're requesting next year. Because they just finished the master build today, as a matter of fact. And it was a real challenge. There were many courses that were closed out due to enrollment caps that they had to work to find students other courses to take. So, you know, this is a real problem that we have. It's not a, you know, it's. I know people say when it's a level service budget that it's not really, but it is, because we're accentuating the need that still exists. So, We've had some tough conversations at the high school administrative level in terms of how to convert from the traditional current schedule to this schedule and provide these opportunities and still provide the students the courses that they're seeking. And to your point, whether we want to or not, they all have to take 3 additional credits. It's a state requirement. So when you have 2,000 students that all have to take 3 additional credits, that takes staff, you know? We were able to offset some of that because kids that maybe were going home early previously as, you know, seniors because you only needed 22 credits in the past, and maybe we weren't filling seats in electives, right? We know some kids wanted to go home early, period 7 and 8, and so they weren't taking some of those electives that ran late in the day. Now they need to take them because they need to earn those credits. So those seats are filling up because of that, and we have more flexibility, allowing more options for kids. So it's going to get to a point at some point that we are going to have to look at staffing levels at the high school in order to make this work and give kids the opportunities they're seeking.
Do you see, do you see a chance that these kids are not going to be able to get these credits?
For graduation.
They'll get the credits for graduation, but they will not get the courses
a matter
they're
of-
requesting.
So how does that, I'm just.
You know, as he said, 53% of the students got the courses they requested.
So for
That
the
means almost
others-
half did not.
Yeah, so for the others, how do you deal with that? You sort of, you got that excitement build up, and this is, as Mrs. Clark said, this is ridiculously crazy work. This is a lot of stuff, and continuous improvement is not easy, right? And especially when you're doing it at such a grand level. But how do you go back to those students and say, geez, I'm sorry, 43%?
Yeah.
Doing my math. And say, yeah, except for, yeah.
Try again next year. Maybe you'll get it next year. Yes.
And then you got to keep that motivation level going with them, right?
Yes.
So, a future conversation, I'm sure, but.
But then, this is great stuff. Thank you. Thank you very much. A lot of hard work.
This is not so much a question, but I mean, to your point, Mr. Oshana, it's almost, I guess it prepares children for the real-world scenario of sometimes you don't get what you want. And, again, while I think it's unfortunate, I'm really excited to be seeing, again, more of the health courses, wellness courses. Again, like, these are the things that, if anything, we have to really pay attention to what the needs of, again, call it the community are, whether it's global or even on a local level. We have Hartford Healthcare, they just, keeps coming up in my news feeds and everything else. There are $30,000 sign-on bonuses for nurses. There is a huge need for nurses, and again, like as the university programs start to change, the PA programs, Quinnipiac is one of the best in the country. All of those places require patient contact hours, and if we don't provide our students with an ability to essentially get those contact hours, then they're having to do it on the tail end. Again, being able to set up kids, instead of working $15 an hour, to maybe work as a CNA making $18, $20, $22 an hour in one of the 5 assisted living facilities that we actually have just in this town alone. These are, again, career paths for our students, but also needs that we actually have as a community. So, again, like whether that was done on purpose or, just happened to fall into place, like it's so exciting to me, and it sort of revitalized me. I've been talking about a CNA program for, I think for the past 6 years, 7 years. I lose track.
Mrs. Senza can tell you, because she and I talk about it each year, and she's got there. We got it.
This is exciting, and
It
again,
was
like-
not by accident. Give her the credit.
Oh, this is absolutely awesome. Again, like 9 students, and I hope it keeps doubling every year. So this is really good stuff.
Quick question, kind of going back on that elective course requests. How are the students that do get into the courses, how are they selected? Is that like a first come, first serve, or is there some analysis there that goes on?
So we start with seniors, and it goes, so there's some level of, there's some level of preference that goes down, and then it goes into a build, and it spits it back at us.
There's some pretty complex algorithms that are run within the scheduling software. So
It's software, so it's assisted by Powers, so like the software.
some of them are funneled into the courses because they have course conflicts in other courses that they're requesting that wouldn't allow them to take the course that only falls on a certain period. And the high school and Mrs. Senza and Mrs. Poon and the others that work on the schedule also, there's some priority status they put in amongst some courses that will also funnel kids into certain courses based on course requirements they need towards graduation requirements, because we know we need the STEM requirements, the humanities requirements and whatnot. So some of it, students get funneled by what they haven't completed yet, and what they still need versus maybe what they've requested.
Okay, thank you.
I thank you. There
Thank
are
you.
so many moving parts with this. I don't think people realize the complexity of what it is you do. I thank you for the work that you and the staff have put in. So,
Thank you for the support.
thank you. Next on our agenda, the Titan presentation.
So we have, do we have a PowerPoint this evening, Mr. Romano? You have hard, even better, quicker.
That's good?
Yes,
Does that work
for
for
sure.
everybody? Okay.
While Greg is passing those out. I'll just-
So if we could, I'll give Mr. Romano an opportunity to introduce you and kind of the purpose of this evening's presentation. Not to put you on the spot, Mr. Romano, but.
That's fine. Good evening, members of the Board of Education. I am here with Adam Teff, who is our consultant with Titan Energy for all of our energy needs. We were approached, I'm not sure if it came through Adam, came through the town, but they wanted to look at our sites for a battery storage system. The basic concept is that the batteries will pull power off the grid at night and dispense of power into the school during the day, and they will get a rate decrease on the power consumption from Eversource. For us, that part doesn't matter. What this is for us is leasing a piece of property big enough for the batteries, and they've already gone through the water pollution control. They're going to put a system over there if it's approved by the town council. It was approved by water pollution, so Adam's here tonight with a gentleman from RWE, which has some relationship with Con Edison. I don't fully understand that part, to be honest with you. So Adam?
And I just want to take a moment to acknowledge Adam. You all had questions about two specific items during the budget process: the solar panels on the roof and the energy management contract, the Noresco energy management contract. So the information I've sent to you in the past few weekly updates to answer those questions about the savings of the Noresco energy management contract and the solar savings, this is the gentleman who did all the analysis for us and provided us the concrete information for all of you. So it's nice to put a name to a face. So Adam, thank you and welcome.
Thanks, Steve. Appreciate it. Nice to see everybody. I'll give you a little bit of background on Titan and what we've been hired to do for the town. I'll also give you some background on the projects and RWE, and just, I'll throw this out there right away. So Con Edison was actually acquired by RWE within the last few months. So when we originally began looking at these projects back in November, it was Con Edison that was, kind of in the driver's seat, and now it's simply just a name change. So I'm sure, we can touch upon that a little bit more, but I wanted to just put that out there. So, so Titan is a hired energy consultant working for the town of Southington and the Board of Ed. We were actually in the mix for a couple of years back, 2014 to 2018 or so, and then took a little bit of a hiatus, and we've been back within the last year. So, the scope of our contract is really to assist with all things energy related. So, on-site generation projects like solar projects, helping purchase energy, electricity, natural gas. We do data management, EV charging, efficiency work. So really any aspect of how the town and the school board use energy, kind of falls under our purview. And our main goal is to help towns either lower their costs or earn through projects like this. And as I'm sure you all know, the town's been very, very active over the years with rooftop solar and efficiency to the performance contract. So we've really picked at every one of the programs that's become available through Eversource over the years to help keep your energy costs low. So this is really the next iteration of that. So
Battery storage is, I'm sure folks have been hearing about more, is kind of making its way more into the mainstream, kind of like where solar was a few years ago. And the utilities have a program now called the Energy Storage Solutions Program that's really, from a policy perspective, geared towards helping Eversource manage peak loads at certain times of the day and of the year on the power grid. Essentially, if you're Eversource, if you're ISO New England, you're mostly concerned with what's going on at peak times. If you can manage what's going on during the peak, the rest of the grid is usually going to be fine. So this is to prevent situations that we typically see in other states, like rolling blackouts, brownouts, et cetera, interruptions to the normal operation of the power grid. So this is really the next iteration of how that, from a policy perspective, the state legislature created this program. The Connecticut Green Bank administers it. Eversource has a very strong hand in how the program goes. And then that's the policy goal. So the mechanism to help everything come together is incentivize private companies to come in, build and own and operate these battery assets so that they can discharge during peak times, basically when they're called upon by the utility. And the main times of the year for that would be summer and winter. And it's designed to be a hands-off program for the school district. So folks in facilities don't have to do anything. The system's there. It is programmed to do what it's supposed to do, without any interference from the operations of the schools or interface from folks on staff. And I have Greg Carey with me from RWE. I thought it was important that Titan had brought this idea to the town back in November, but I also want to have Greg here that he could walk you through some of the specifics of the proposal, what the intention is generally, and then if there are questions, we can answer those. Not to steal the lead from Greg, but essentially, unlike some of the solar deals that the school district has done where you purchase cheaper power, basically you have an expensive kilowatt from Eversource, a cheaper kilowatt from solar, that price difference equals savings that the school can recognize. This operates a little bit differently in the sense that there are some utility bill savings, but that's not really like the main driver of the motivation here. The utility savings roughly would be about $5,000 to $15,000 a year per site. So it's not nothing, but it's not the thing that we lead with necessarily. What the district is, under any condition entitled to is a lease payment per unit, so 2 sites here, of $25,000 per year, so $50,000 a year for basically for allowing this equipment to be installed and operated on the site. The proposal does say 20. That is a typo. I'm glad it's a typo in that direction and not the other direction. So if you notice that, it is $25,000 per site. And the equipment that's spec'd in is the Tesla Megapack. It's a tried and true system. They've got really great support on the maintenance side. All will be performed by the RWE folks. So before I eat all of Greg's time, I just want to say thank you for having us in. It's always a pleasure working with Southington, and we hope that this project is something that you'll be interested in.
Thank you very much for your time. I know you have a busy agenda and appreciate the opportunity. My name's Greg Carey. I'm a project manager with RWE. And as Adam said, I was formerly part of Con Edison Clean Energy Businesses. Our team joined RWE, and we now are RWE Clean Energy. And we're based in Valhalla, New York. And I do want to mention that by joining RWE, we became one of the largest renewable energy companies in the United States. And we both develop wind, solar, and battery across the United States. RWE is a European-based company. They've had many, many decades of experience developing in Europe, and they saw clean energy, Con Ed, as an opportunity to really strengthen their place in the marketplace in the United States. So
I just would like to quickly go through the presentation that I handed out to you. The RWE development process includes us purchasing the equipment, installing the equipment, maintaining and operating it, so there's no cost at all to the schools for either project. We've included a proposed very preliminary layout that still needs to be worked on, but wanted to give you some idea of what these areas could be, where we're leasing land. The lease is typically a 10-year lease with 2 5-year extension options. The lease area is about 950 square feet. Typically, there's a concrete foundation. The megapacks, the Tesla megapacks get placed on it. There's a chain link fence around it with a locked gate for security reasons. We do include some of the benefits that will be available not only to the schools but the towns, in addition to the annual lease payment we'll be making to the schools. There will also be a personal property tax payment each year for the 20 years, and that's something we hope to discuss with the town so that we can work out a mutually agreeable tax payment, annual tax payment structure. On page 6 of the handout, there are a couple of photos of what these megapacks look like. It's somewhat similar to if you pass a construction site and you see a steel container where contractors store their equipment and other things. It looks like that, but with doors, with cabinet doors. And most likely, we'll be installing the larger megapack on the 2 school sites. I've included some information about the development process. We typically start with the Board of Education. We know we have to go to Town Council. There'll be permits and approvals required before we can install anything. We'll meet with, obviously, the fire department and others who are going to be reviewing these applications. And again, there's the last page, page 8, just gives a brief summary of some of the benefits that will be available. One important one is these battery systems do have an option or an availability of being a backup source of power to the schools in the event that there's an outage. So that's one of the benefits that I think should be highlighted, because in the event of an emergency, a power outage, it will be possible for the schools to draw power from these battery units. And I'm happy to try to answer any questions you may have.
These battery packs, are they AC or DC?
They're AC.
AC. Will there be, I know the pictures they look nice. I mean, they're modern. What about security? I mean, are there going to be fences around it? Is there gonna
Yes, there'll be a chain link fence surrounding it with a gate and a lock.
And all of the individual cabinets are locked as well, too, so very difficult to get inside.
May I go? What's the cost of one of these?
They're expensive.
Yeah.
And they're hard to get. The other problem is there is a supply issue because of the demand right now, especially for Tesla batteries, is crazy. But to answer your question, they're in the range of $2 to $3 million.
And And that's per, so are we talking one single
Mega
mega pack at the location?
Yeah.
So
At each location, so essentially two?
2 sites, yep,
Yeah.
right, exactly.
Yep.
So essentially so it would be the lease payment plus the tax incentive to the town on a $3 million piece of machinery?
Plus the energy saving, potential energy savings.
So again, like, the energy savings, as far as I'm concerned, that's pie in the sky, because again, like that, over the solar projects and everything else, I don't want to hear anything about energy savings. I want to know like the actual hard data that we'd essentially be looking at for potential revenue to the town, and, you know, and again, like, revenue. Savings, that's an added bonus, but I'm more concerned about the revenue.
Yep.
Now, the other thing that I have concern about, batteries do catch fire. There was I believe, a mega battery installation that was done in California where one of the mega packs burned. The off-gassing, you know, where is this going to be installed on the property? You know, the Apollo, I know that there's a little bit of open space and everything around that middle school, but again, like, Kennedy is in a much more densely populated area. We've had a couple people around Kennedy, you know, complain about some of our machinery there making too much noise, that type of thing. You know, again, like, in the event of something like this catching fire, that's you know, I'd be curious as to know what our fire department thinks about it. You know, I know that they're hard to manage.
Yep. Yeah, so, why don't
Go
I
ahead.
just hop
No,
in here too?
please do.
Yeah, sure. No, I mean, this is definitely something that, you know, has come up before, and it's just something, you know, we want to address head on, right? So, statistically, the occurrence of the equipment catching fire is about on par with rooftop solar equipment catching fire as well. So, you know, the stats I've seen is about 0.01% of any battery equipment that's been installed has ever had that issue. I know that there's a lot of stats that kind of go back and forth between like Tesla cars and electric cars and trying to compare. And I don't know if there's much distinction between instances where it's like a parked car catching fire versus being in an accident and then catching fire, which is obviously, you know, two very different situations. So, you know, and rooftop solar, I think, is, you know, it's been in the marketplace for a lot longer, and people probably have a lot, you know, higher degree of comfort with that. I personally remember about 10 years ago getting some of the same questions about solar and people putting panels on the roof and being afraid that that the actual building would catch fire and things like that. So, you know, it's a completely natural question, totally get it. I think it's the odds of that happening and the concern of that happening is probably much smaller. And I think, you know, from a permitting perspective, nothing could get put on town property, whether it's the wastewater plant or the schools, that the fire folks would basically say no to. So this would have to go through planning and zoning. It'd have to get, you know, permission from the local fire department. Presumably there'd be some training as well in the event that something like that did happen, so they, you know, they felt comfortable with it. And, you know, as far as placement, the idea is to be, you know, again, for safety reasons, to be as far away from the school as possible while still maintaining an interconnection path that makes sense and is reasonable. In the presentation here, we've marked off places where we felt the equipment could go that would work for everybody. You know, there's still, you know, that's not set in stone, so Peter and I, you know, in RWE could continue to refine that and make sure that everybody's comfortable with it. And again, once it finally gets to planning and zoning and in front of, you know, the fire marshal, that everybody has, you know, kind of full rights to either, you know, support or veto the project based on, you know, their perception of, you know, the overall safety of it. And if the system, again, this is like one of those ifs, if the system did catch fire, it's actually designed, and I think I can send everybody on the board this. We have a really helpful PDF about the Megapack and kind of safety protocols that talk about what happens if the equipment does catch fire, right? So in the unlikely event that happens, it's basically meant, and it's built to be a contained, basically a contained fire that, you know, burns itself out. Obviously, nobody wants that to happen, but I think, you know, we're happy to share that information and make sure everybody has, you know, a chance to look that over and, you know, just better understand kind of what it entails. Do you want to add anything, Greg?
No,
Thank you. My only other question was the lifespan of this type of equipment.
Yep, so generally it's about 20 years. What's interesting about the Connecticut program, the Energy Storage Solutions Program, is that it's a 10-year program. So, there is a possibility that at the end of 10 years, if the program availability is, they basically said, oh, this is a 10-year program, we're not going to renew, we're not going to do any extensions, then, at that point, the primary revenue source really for RWE would dry up. And at that point, if there was no future program, you'd take the equipment back, right? If there is a program to support it and there's some way to operate it in a way that's financially beneficial for everybody, that's when those 2 5-year extensions would come into play. So I'm basically telling everybody to plan for, at least 10 years, because that's what we know today. And then the possibility, 2 additional 5 years. And again, some of that would depend on the condition of the equipment. If you get to year 14, 15, and it's no longer in tip-top shape and maintenance on it is more expensive than it's worth, that would be a situation I think you'd unwind it.
Who takes over that responsibility? Would it still be?
So RWE, throughout the course of the contract, has full responsibilities for the equipment.
So in the event that, say, that it becomes non-lucrative after about 10 years, then removal of the equipment, or does it stay on site, or how does that work?
Well, we'll have a discussion at that time, whether it's 10 years or 20 years. We're responsible for removing it, but we'll have a conversation, obviously, to see if the schools would like it to remain. There still may be a use.
Right, so even if the utility program winds down, but there's still a viable use for the equipment on site, that's when, you could trigger those extensions. If there's no viable program and there's really no way to run it effectively without the program, then RWE, at their expense, has to take it back.
Okay, so first question, very direct. What's the expected revenue for RWE on an annual basis from installing these mega packs? Why do it? At what revenue?
Yeah, I can't answer that. I don't know that number right now.
Give me a ballpark.
I can't. It wouldn't, I'd be just throwing out a number with no backup attached to it.
Okay, so that kind of points me in another direction, right? So you're coming to the town of Southington and the Southington Board of Education, right, to make a business case. All right, because that's what this is. All right, you're coming to us saying that the town of Southington will get X amount of dollars in revenue and potential cost savings. But in making that business case, you don't even have a ballpark of what your expected revenue is on installing one of these packs?
So I can just jump in here for a sec. So the general expectation on a utility project like this is a return on investment that, or payback around 8%. So, 10-year IRR, 8 to 10%. Kind of like any utility investments, like, if you're a private investor, you can kind of decide like, well, do you want to do more speculative investments with possible higher returns, or do you want to do lower returns with more predictable revenue streams? So that's basically the intention here. It's about 8 to 10%. Can I ask, just in terms of where your thought process is, are you thinking that, it might be a better business case for the town to own the equipment, or, how can I better kind of address the heart, like the heart of your question?
Well, I think my questioning will be very directive, and that's just my first one. But my second one is, if this is a state program, okay, and even if it was a federal program, why not fund Eversource directly? Why is RWE in the equation, yet you still have an obvious interconnection to Eversource as the power supplier?
So if I understand the question correctly, there's really kind of a few dynamics. One is, I think the state legislature recognizes that private developers can typically do these things at lower cost than utilities can. I mean, utilities are known for a lot of things. Doing things low cost is usually not one of them. So, you know, as far as why utilities don't own batteries themselves, I'm not sure if it's a kind of thing where it's like, kind of like how there's the regulated side of a utility business and there's the deregulated side, right? And they're not allowed to own generation assets, basically. So I think that probably has something to do with it. I know that the state has been really keen to incentivize private developers, much like they did with the solar programs, to come in and build the systems, not Eversource or not UI. I think it's kind of in the same line of thinking here.
Okay, with this program, are there payments received by RWI directly from the state?
So the program and the funds are administered by the Connecticut Green Bank. So it's just, they call it a quasi-state entity. Are you
Okay.
familiar with the Connecticut Green Bank?
I'm not.
Okay.
And with that program, are there defined payments or no?
Yeah, there's participation payments based on discharging at certain times of the year. There's basically what they call events that occur, like 60 to 90 events during the summer and during the winter.
Okay.
That RWE would be compensated for if they respond at that time. And since I don't work for RWE, I haven't seen their internal books in terms of like, you know, what you know, their exact revenue is on this project. It's easier to calculate on a solar project because you can basically say you have a PPA rate of X, and if they're generating this many kilowatt hours, just do the math, right? That's pretty easy. The events are not set in stone. It's basically when the power grid calls for it. So, you know, there's some risk on their part that, you know, they're making assumptions about, you know, how many of those between 60 and 90 events are actually going to happen. You know, another significant part of the equation for anybody that owns this equipment is, you know, federal tax benefits. So that's kind of something to help put some predictability back in the financial model for them. You know, for our part, you know, we've looked at different vendors that, you know, have different setups with stuff like this. It's not as saturated in terms of the market as far as solar goes. I mean, you can open the phone book and flip through, probably find 20 solar developers pretty easily, and maybe 30% of them will be pretty good. Part of the reason why, you know, in us doing our due diligence, there's really two factors here. There's the equipment itself and what equipment they're speccing in. So I think the Tesla Megapack is really the king of the heap as far as the equipment goes at this point. So if you're looking, you know, to maximize your safety, you know, that aspect of it, I think going with, you know, a more tried and true product is always a good thing. And the fact that Con Ed was actually a utility company in New York means they have a much more sophisticated operation to manage this stuff. So, you know, my job is always for the town to try to minimize the risks, find the right projects, find the right products, and you know, make sure all goes well. So, you know, that's why we'd focused our efforts on RWE with, you know, for really those two reasons in mind.
Okay, and so, why school facilities and school property?
Well, it could be anywhere, really. It doesn't, if, you know, from the grid's perspective, it doesn't matter if it's a school or a mall or, you know, whatever. However, there are some certain factors that are important. Location on the grid. So if you think about the grid, there's broken up into circuits, and there's certain areas of the grid that could stand to benefit more, and certain areas of the grid that stand to benefit less. So we want to be on a part of the grid that stands to benefit more and also has cheaper interconnection costs. So, you know, that's kind of the name of the game, keep the project cost down. The other reason...
Well, and not to interrupt you, but you know, the only reason I say that and pose that question is you said the expected lease payment is $50,000 a year?
Per both sites.
Yeah, per site.
Yep.
No.
No. For both.
Collectively, both?
the
Okay,
net.
so let's just call it, okay, so $50,000 total for the two sites
And,
over.
and the tax revenue that goes to the town, which, again, this is a number that we're gonna need to negotiate with the town.
Right, and again,
But that
you
obviously
know,
doesn't
but,
include.
yeah,
this,
it's an unknown before we even get there. So $50,000 over a guaranteed 10-year lease period, that's $500,000. I could put you in contact with our economic development coordinator here in town and find you a piece of industrial or commercial property for $500,000, and you could put your battery pack there. Why not that?
Well, the main reason why schools tend to be good projects for solar and battery and fuel cells and stuff like that is because a lot of times private businesses have difficult time wrapping their head around long-term agreement. So schools.
And
you're
so
not-
do we.
Well, you haven't in the past. I don't know. So for as far as a 10-year, right? So like if you think about 10 years in time of a school, right? It's like that's a much different calculation than if you're a private business who tends to think in like 3 to 5 year increments. So the predictability, knowing that JFK and DePaul are probably still going to be middle schools in 10 to 20 years, means that the site, there's not going to be any complications with the site itself. I found in my experience, I do most of my work with municipalities, but I do have customers that are private businesses, and the idea of a 20-year solar PPA, even if it's 5 cents a kilowatt hour when the utility's 20, they can't do it. So, but between the location on the grid and the fact that schools tend to be more amenable to longer-term agreements, it means that they tend to make good candidates for these programs. And I think the state knows that too, and they've written a lot of these programs to be friendly to municipalities.
Yeah, and the only thing I'd add to what Adam said is, these lease payments are for a piece of land, leasing a piece of land that's about 950 square feet. So it's a very small area. And we try to choose areas that aren't, sites that aren't being used or have 900,000 square feet basically sitting there unused. So I think it's a win-win for most of the landowners. When you look at that payment on a per square foot basis on land that is being unused.
Correct, and I understand that. I'm just, trying to get the information out there and acquire as much information as possible, so the town and the community can make an informed decision. I think that there's other viable opportunities here in town to generate revenue from, allowing you to, operate these battery packs here in the community that don't necessarily mean us putting them at school sites. Because obviously there's other concerns, that we would have as a board, and as a town, to our students, to our families, to our community, to our facilities. And so, maybe it means looking off school sites, and still having the benefit of, $50,000 lease payments on an annual basis, or acquiring property here in town that is otherwise not being utilized, to its fullest degree. I'm just trying to make it as clairvoyant as possible that there's a reason why RWE wants to be on a school site versus another commercial or industrial site here in town. That's my line of questioning, is trying to establish that.
Well, I mean,
and giving us the information as a board and as a community so we can make an informed decision, not make a decision like we've done in the past of, yes, we've made a long-term commitment to either a revenue source or a cost savings energy project that, quite frankly, has not had positive net results either for the Board of Education or the town of Southington. That's where I'm going with this.
Yeah, and you know, we've looked at other sites in town. We do need to be co-located with a load that can be reduced by the size of the battery. So I'm just using an extreme example, like plunking it in a field somewhere is not really going to do much. And in terms of the idea of acquiring land, the lenders and the investors behind these projects basically just don't do that. That's not like in the business model of they don't want to be a landowner, they want to be an operator of equipment like that. So that's just really not their business model. Even for like long-term solar leases, when you see these, you know, these big projects on farms and stuff, solar company doesn't own the farm. Farmer owns the farm. They collect the revenue. You know, and I think what might, because I didn't originate or oversee the performance contract, but I've been able to dive into it and kind of understand it a bit. And I've also taken time to quantify what the solar projects have done, you know, which I think every month they've been active have been beneficial for the town in reducing costs. I think what's different about the battery program versus maybe some of the other things that are out there is that you're really just, you're carving off a, you know, 900 square foot footprint so we can operate the system and then collecting the revenue. There's no performance penalties, like if RWE underperformed, there's no penalties for you. It's like, you know, renting a space on your property, or subletting a space on your property at 900 square feet. I think 900 square feet for, you know, $2,500 a month or so. That's probably like a New York apartment. So there, you know, I'm not sure where, you know, from like a monetary standpoint, where things could go wrong or go off the rails. I mean, it's a really straightforward, you know, if you give us this, you know, the space, then you get the lease.
Right. What type of access to the battery packs, to the leased property, do you need? And is there any sort of utility easement associated with the lease of that property, that 950 square feet?
Yeah, there would be a utility easement. And as far as access, it's really just, you know, this would be spelled out in the lease where, you know, there would be a demarcated spot where the equipment would go, and then it would be within that fenced-in area. So, and because the equipment's outside, there's nothing for anybody to need to access in the building. So from a maintenance perspective, and Greg, correct me if I'm wrong, but as far as being able to get into the fenced-in area, which, you know, I think there's a 24-hour notice clause too, that, you know, before anybody shows up on site, they would have to notify somebody from the board that they were coming. But just for routine maintenance, that would be, you know, they would have access for that.
Just a couple quick ones.
Yeah,
The
sure.
power source that is going to be used to charge the batteries, where's that coming from and who pays for that?
Yep, so two facets to that question. One, it's drawn from the power grid, so it does register through your meter, and it's charged at off-peak times. So, you know, one of the benefits of this is you charge at off-peak times, kilowatt hour in during off-peak, and then you discharge during on-peak. So kilowatt hour in, kilowatt hour out. So it should be even from that perspective. If there are ever any imbalances there, there's a true-up clause in the contract that RWE is fully responsible for compensating the school board if.
So you're saying that we are paying, of our meter, we pay for the electricity that goes into the battery?
Well, you're charging it during the night, so you're drawing a kilowatt from Eversource, and then during the day, you're pushing that kilowatt hour back out. So it's sort of a two-way
If there's a
street.
demand.
So, excuse me, what was the question?
If there's a demand from the outside source to draw from the battery.
Yeah, so the battery is going to discharge anything that it draws in and it discharges back out. You get, that registers on your bill as well. It's not like if you pull from Eversource through your meter, but then discharge back out directly to Eversource without basically going back through your system. So any kilowatt hour that comes in also goes out. Does that make sense?
You're paying less upfront to charge it, and then when you're using it, you're not paying Eversource because it's coming from the battery.
Buy low, sell high.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, no, I know what he's saying, but we're taking the power through our meter, so we're paying for the electricity to charge the battery.
But then you're also getting the benefit of that kilowatt hour going back the other way.
Does it reverse the meter
Right, that's what I'm saying. So
at a different rate?
well, you get, right, so it charges off-peak during the night and then discharges back during on-peak.
It's a question of control.
Right.
Right? And this is the reason why I personally don't have solar panels at my home, because Eversource controls, essentially, if I had a battery at my home, Eversource controls that energy, both supply, powering the battery, and then discharging. And
I don't know if I agree with that necessarily, or maybe I'm just not following what you're saying, but I think the important point is that, if you think about, like, here's your meter, here's your battery, right? You got, energy flowing through your meter into your battery. If the battery's going to discharge anything, it's going to send it right back. So, and at the end of the month, Eversource tallies up, much like they do with your solar, how much did you draw in and how much did you push back out? And then they reconcile that at the end of the billing cycle, and that's how they charge you. So where the utility bill savings come in, much like you said, is if you're charging during the night when power's cheaper and discharging, sending that same kilowatt hour back during the day when it's expensive, that is the utility bill benefit from the project. So there's never a situation in which you pull in a kilowatt hour and then that kilowatt hour doesn't go back to Eversource if it's discharged.
So, and then the benefit to our WE is what?
The payments from the Energy Storage Solutions Program. That's how they make their money back on this project.
It's not through the power.
No, they're not selling power. They're not acting as like a merchant generator selling power. They're simply, that equipment is there to participate in the program to help manage peaks. Because the idea is if you get enough of these batteries on the grid, that can, because if you think about how how you manage peaks on the grid, there's only so many things you can do. You could build more power plants, which nobody wants, right? There's never going to be a 50 megawatt natural gas power plant in the town of Southington. So, what other mechanisms do you have? You have energy efficiency, which they've done. They've incentivized people to, replace their light bulbs and change their building controls and stuff like that. You can incentivize private individuals and developers to come build solar, so build the power plants for you. They've done that. But the problem with solar is that there's an intermittency factor. You can't control it in the same way. It's not like you can call upon it, much like you can with a battery. So the whole idea is if you get enough of these batteries on the grid and you call upon them at the same time, it's basically like having a virtual power plant that you can use to help meet grid. So you can either meet grid demand with more power, or you can do like power arbitrage where you're charging during the night when demand is low, that's ready for the grid during the day when.
This is something that came to us today, right? We hadn't had any information on this. We're trying to learn. We're not electricity people, right?
Yeah, sure.
So I think there's a lot of questions. These are really good questions, but I don't think we're at least I'm not quite absorbing all the answers. I would think it might be a good idea to table this right now put together a list of questions.
Sure.
and Get them to you, so at least we could have some specific data, but gather up those questions and get them to you so we could have real information to go off of. So I'm going to make a motion to table.
I'll second that.
Sure. You know, these conversations they remind me so much of the solar conversations we had 10 years ago. It's like deja vu. Okay.
We're done. 10 o'clock. Yes.
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 Yes. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, approval of the out-of-state field trips.
Yes.
So I want to apologize first for the 10 o'clock
It's our fault. It's our
field
fault.
trip vote. But I will say, you did ask to be last
know,
on the
I did.
agenda because you had an honor society celebration tonight.
I know, it's
So,
our fault.
yeah, Mrs. Riccio is pretty much probably just about out of fuel at this point because we had the World Language Honor Society. She needs a battery.
I do.
And
I do.
a National Honor Society induction, and
Yeah.
now you've just learned everything you need to know about battery
batteries.
packed powered. So with that said, we will introduce the field trips this evening between Mr. Pepe and Mrs. Riccio. They're here to answer any questions you may have.
So we have 3 trips that we're proposing for next April. 1 to China, 1 to France, and 1 to Spain. I think you have all the packets about connections to curriculum and you know, we've presented a lot of these trips before. They're similar. They're a little bit different. China is more of a tour and not a homestay. Spain and Italy is what we've always done with homestays. So it's what we do.
Okay, I'm gonna, I'll open it up for questions. 'Cause
Yep.
there's 3 separate trips that we have here, so we would like to.
I just want to, I mean, the Paris Normandy one, we just had the orator was speaking about it earlier. She just couldn't say enough wonderful things about what she got out of it, what the other students got out of it. We got cookies.
Nice.
Right, already.
Zaya got cookies.
No, there's more there. I ate 4 already. The Madrid, that's great. The only one I have a problem with in my head right now is the Beijing.
Yeah.
Only because of world
Yeah.
situations right now. And, you know, it's a little ways off.
Mhm.
And, you know, we were just having a side conversation about that. I don't know if that's a good or a very bad thing.
Right.
Right.
So, I mean, I can talk to, so student safety and staff safety is always a priority, right? I'm gonna just remind you that we have gone to China before. We have gone to China in the summer for 2 weeks. It was through the business department, it wasn't through us.
And I think it's a phenomenal
Yeah,
trip. That would be, just. I mean, I would love to go. I
Yeah.
think that what the students would get out of that would be remarkable.
right,
I'm just a little bit concerned about the timing of it.
right. And so, we do have cancel for any reason. We make all students buy that. It's your policy.
Required, yeah.
And so we always tell kids that the board reserves the right to cancel a trip. And so they go into that knowing, right? And so even though you have canceled for no reason or any reason, you still potentially could lose a percentage, 20%, depends on what insurance you buy or something, 25%. But they know that going in. They know that, and honestly, when it comes down to it, like with COVID, because we had to cancel trips, this happened with COVID, we canceled Italy, we canceled Spain, kids did get all of their money back because most of the insurance that you buy, you're not gonna cancel a trip for just any reason. You're gonna cancel the trip because there's a danger, and then those things are covered under the insurance anyway, right? So COVID, when we canceled, there was like, whoa, we have to see, and then the kids got all of their money back, even if they had canceled for any reason for only 50%, they got all their money back. I know, both of my sons were going to Italy when COVID hit, and we got all of our money back. So I think that we have that covered, you know? And then so that maybe you'll feel more comfortable, I watch the news like everybody else does, but I watch it in 3 languages on a regular basis. So, and I will tell you that, I don't want to say anything political, but I will tell you that news is presented differently in different languages and in different cultures. And so I read the news in Italian and Spanish and English, and I know somewhere in there is the truth. Right? So I would love to be able to read it in Chinese. I would love to be able to read it in other languages. Schwinn is here, and so I would expect that she would be also reading the news to know that somewhere between our news and their news, there is the truth, right? I'm also linked for some reason, I think because of the travel, I'm linked to the State Department, so I can tell you anytime there is an increased threat anywhere in the world. So I get those emails, and actually they come to my Southington Public Schools email, I don't know why. I think that we're all aware that the world is a dangerous place in the States and abroad. I think there are even moments where people would argue that potentially we are the most dangerous country, right? In Italy in 2018, we had a trip, my son Anthony went on it. There was a bomb in Brussels. It was terrorism. We rearranged the trip. We eliminated Rome. So there's always that option, right? If we find that there's a particular area, maybe China there is, I don't know, or Italy or Spain, whatever Spain had Catalonia, right? They had the protests in Catalonia a couple of years ago. We would just eliminate that part of the trip. So we landed in Rome and we got the kids on a bus and we headed to Mondavio. And we just avoided Rome at all. Because Rome at the time, the backstory to that is Rome, in the Rome newspapers, ISIS was targeting Rome. They were threatening to go to Rome next. So we just eliminated it. They landed, they got in a bus, they went to Mondavio, and unfortunately for them, they were disappointed that they didn't get to see Rome, but that's the way it goes. You know, I know that sometimes there's talk about communism and different belief systems. You know, Bob Brown was a former board member. He went to Russia all the time. And we celebrated those trips, right? Because that's how you bring people together. And that's how you create dialogue and understanding across cultures, is when you can go and see who these people are and they get to know us. And I think it really improves relations overall. And just, you know, I mean, if I've been traveling since I was a kid, right? I went to Italy when the Ayatollah, you know, I think it's 1980 or 1979, it was hijacked, that plane, and took those hostages, and I was like, oh my God, like, what? You know, as a little kid, and we went. And I think if you go there's always bad stuff going on in the world, and if we didn't go, I was in Spain during the Gulf War in '91. If we didn't go every time the U.S. could potentially be in a conflict, we would never go. Right. You know, I mean, we just would never go. So, I mean, I do think that the insurance is the biggest thing. They have to buy insurance. It's your policy. And if it is a really strong conflict, big conflict, then they wouldn't even have to worry about the cancel for any reason, because you'd have a reason and they would get their money back.
I'm a little envious, although I will be in Paris in June.
Yeah, good.
I have a lot of faith in what you've done over the years.
Thanks.
And I've traveled, you know, extensively myself. And you are right. You know, you can't believe everything you read in the papers. You know, try to make things bigger than what they really are.
Yeah.
But I have a lot of faith in what you've done in the past. If there's any chance of any, you know, any unsafe situation developing, I think you would call it.
Yeah.
And the board does have the ability to pull the plug at any point.
Yeah.
I'm in favor of all
Thank
three
you.
trips.
Thank you.
And I'm kind of excited at the fact that you're going to Normandy.
Yeah.
That's
gonna be
still
great.
breathtaking.
Yeah.
Chairwoman, what is the required vote to cancel a trip on the board? Do we know?
It would be a simple majority, and if need be, you can call a special meeting for emergency purposes right up to the day of the meeting. So should something occur that we need to pull the plug, you could do that very quickly.
In the past, the board gave the superintendent the authority to act on behalf of the board in the event of a situation. That's
When it-
another option.
When it came to COVID, we just met in Frank's office, and we just were like, and Frank had, you know, picked me up off the ground because I was crying, but like, you know, but no, I mean, we just met and we just knew like this was just not going to get better. And I believed it was going to get better right away. I believe we were flattening the curve 2 weeks, right? But we made the decision.
All right, so have you ever, in your authorize the superintendent.
We authorize the superintendent.
It's actually similar to what you did for me during COVID, when you guys gave me the authority to make decisions that were
Right,
beyond
exactly.
policy, given the circumstances.
Yeah.
So we do the same thing.
Sounds good.
Just my 2 cents. I mean, again, we could, if we went by safety for everything, we'd all live in our basements. And, you know, again, like, I think this is such a phenomenal opportunity for our students. I think it's a good thing for you as the teaching staff to bring back to the students and let them know, listen, there was a discussion about this, and here's why. Because, you know, quite frankly, you know, being a student of history and everything else, we all know about Hitler and all the bad things he did, 11 million people.
Right.
A lot of us don't know about Stalin. He killed almost as many, arguably more. And Mao, when he introduced communism to China, 60 million people died. So, you know, again, like, these are the types of things where I think we, in society now, we throw around communism and socialism and democracy, and we all try and make these arguments about who does it better, who gets it wrong. And, you know, again, like, I think it's an important opportunity to teach students about, hey, these are real issues, but also to recognize that, holy crap, like, the Great Wall, the Forbidden City, all these amazing, I mean, here you go to Essex, Connecticut, and it's like, wow, this house is from 1639. Well, you go out to Europe or you go to China, it's like, oh, this was built in 200 BC, or, you know, and it's still functioning.
Right.
You know, so it's such a phenomenal bringing history to life to students, and then, again, learning about the different cultures and, you know, from business to just life in general. But I think it's great. This is absolutely awesome.
Awesome, thank you.
Entertain a motion for?
Yeah, I'm going to make a motion real quick. I don't recall, I mean, I do recall a trip that I took to Paris.
Yeah.
And I bumped into the students that were in Paris.
Oh, my gosh.
Were you part of that group?
No, that must have been in 2014?
Thereabouts?
Yeah, 2013, 2014, yeah.
Everybody got stuck in Paris because of the volcano.
Oh, no, that was Italy. They got stuck. It was Maureen Waldron. I was going to mention that, and I forgot to write that down. Yeah, they went on this great trip, right? The last day, they're headed to the airport, and this volcano erupted. No flights. They were stuck 3 days. I mean, that wasn't dangerous, you know what I mean? But like,
Either, you know?
yeah, right, exactly. You know, like, but it was a rough. I mean, things happen. They just happen. You're right. Yeah.
I got stuck for 2 weeks.
Ooh.
Couldn't get flights.
Couldn't get flights. Yeah.
Yeah.
left.
Did he leave already? Yeah.
We can make a motion, Mr.
Good.
Chairman.
Move to approve
Wait, before we make a motion, and it's just, I believe it's just a grammatical error, but on the agenda reporting form, one of the dates is notated as 2023, not 2024.
On which trip is it?
That's a sheet that we have.
Oh, okay.
It's not you, it's
Oh,
us.
okay.
It's not you, it's me.
It's not you, it's us.
I didn't make that mistake.
Right. Is there anything we need to do to correct that, or can we move forward with a motion?
Move forward with the motion.
Okay. Move to approve the trips as presented for 2024.
Thank you.
We'll fix
Can we do
the
them all
date problem.
together?
Second.
We can? Okay. No, we don't have to do them, so we can do them all together?
Yeah.
Why not?
Okay, For 2024?
They just
Okay.
nodded. Yes,
All right.
second. Second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thanks so much. Thank you, guys. Bye. Have a great night.
This is just the sheet that
Calm down, Mr. Lawyer.
he's being. Okay, where am I? The last item on the agenda is the adoption of the 2024 Board of Education meeting dates.
Yeah, move to, let's see, move that the proposed schedule for regular Board of Education meeting dates for 2024 be approved.
Second.
Any discussion?
No.
All those in favor?
Aye.
So moved.
and then you have a final public comment.
Yes, we do. Public comment. Oh, Mr. Ricchio.
Came here to support my wife, but I got a full education on batteries, so I can't help myself. I was doing the math while you guys were all talking, and it's $30 a square foot on a 900 square foot thing that you don't have to build. It's actually a good number. I think if you guys can get comfortable with the safety is the most important, fire, the kids, is there anything emitted from these things? If you get your arms around all that, it's a no-brainer. It really is. If all the safety meets everything that concerns you and concerns parents and concerns the building department, it's free money. I do it at all schools. So, and it's different than the solar program, because the solar program, as the gentleman stated, you're relying on the energy of the sun, where this is just a straight lease payment. It's an area of the school that's not generating any revenue right now. And if when we did the solar, it was supposed to, I don't know if it is, but it was supposed to be built somehow into the curriculum for educational purposes. I would do the same. I mean, everybody, with the energy crisis the way it is right now, everybody should try to do what their part can be. And if you guys can do it, again, as long as all the safety issues are met, it makes, in my opinion, it makes sense. So glad I came for Spanish and whatever else. So.
You left with batteries.
Better knowledge.
Anyone else?
Oh, my goodness.
Mr. Darrenowski,
Move to adjourn.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
10:15.
As great grandpappy used to say, if something doesn't make sense, there's money involved. And if something really doesn't make any sense, there's a lot of money.
Bring these home. No. He's got Frank's name written.